Oh, who's this guy? Oh, who's this guy? Just waiting for people to get up and show up. Doesn't like to send out notifications unless I'm actually live for whatever reason. So, anyways, this is practicing guitar on YouTube. Just a thing. So I'm just doing the catch up stream because I haven't streamed in like a week, 2 weeks, something like that. Josh, how's it going, man? Yeah, just for you, we'll keep it playing. This is my practice routine. We roll up the YouTube. You can tell I'm deadly focused on those notes as I'm looking at the screen. Yeah, I come up with a basic rhythm and then just kind of look at the screen as to where my notes are supposed to be. Have I ever heard of Gregory Alan Isakov? No, I have not. I have not. Is he a guitarist person or who is he? Who is he, Josh? Country folk acoustic music? No. I'm not very up on my musicians. I have found out though that when I was learning to play guitar, like I was around 8 or 9 years old. But I really didn't get serious and I spent a lot of time doing it when I was like 15, 16. And I'd play like 2 hours after school every single day, learned to play all the Metallica stuff, pretty much everything. And it was before YouTube. And these kids now, with the advent of YouTube and being able to watch real live instructors exactly how to play things, these kids are so phenomenal that I just feel like a relic, you know? It's just even, you know, my playing personally just in the last couple of years has gone up dramatically, probably 20-fold, just because of YouTube and being able to play along with the thing that I was just doing that I played in the intro. That was me testing out getting my guitar to work through the computer system and me being able to hear it. I've had a huge problem trying to get all this stuff kind of wired out, and I actually got it to where I could actually do it now on a live stream or something like that. So that was just a test, but just even having something like that that showed me all of the notes in the key that it was and gives you so much freedom in that, you know, some of the best guitar players that I listen to right now on YouTube are actually like 18-year-old girls. For whatever reason, they're really, 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 really adept at guitar. And I don't know what it is or what the deal is, but they're phenomenal. A lot of them from Russia. I know that makes me a bad man now. I just made another list that I said that there's very good young Russian guitar players that are women, and man, I mean, it puts me to shame. I do it just for fun, and I have to say that there's never any chance I'll ever make any money or ever do anything productive with it, you know, other than maybe make backing music for my own videos or something. It there because people out there are so good now, so good that, you know, I don't know what to say else other than that. Steve Terrabury. I haven't heard of him either. And see what I'm into, like what I grew up with is the grunge scene, so Chris Cornell is pretty much my favorite vocalist. But like Soundgarden's a great band, and you got the harder stuff. You got the Megadeth out there is all right, and sort of stuff like that. And when I was playing classic rock with a couple of other different bands. I was a rhythm guitar player and a singer, and I did my own stuff in coffee houses, which I would describe as folk alternative, which is basically I'm playing alternative songs, but I'm doing it on acoustic guitar. It's a coffee house, and that's the style that I did, but I'd never played lead before or anything like that. That's all pretty new. I'm just kind of picking up and trying to learn and put together. But yeah, try to do bass and drums and all that stuff. As probably can see, I was going to put up my green screen, but I don't have a topic, so there's no point. I just kind of putz with it. If all of these things would have been around when I was 8 or 9 years old, my life would have been a whole lot different. We'll just put it that way. But it turned out it is as it is. Well, it's good to have you here, Josh. So for my catch-up stream, I think I got it up on the screen. Yeah. I'm going to just kind of cover the bases for everything. And I know my last video was out there was pretty much like, this is kind of World War III, and this is where we're entering into that tribulation period where things are really going to start turning quickly. And I actually have a little bit of hope now to where I don't think that's going to necessarily happen as fast as I initially saw it happening. And the biggest reason is because people don't want it. Nobody knows where Ukraine is. They can't point it out on a map. And people are tired. People are still tired from the cooties. And they're not ready for another PSYOP yet. They could not give a crap less about what's going on over there. Now, I know that, there are some people that are deadly attached to the news. It's like, oh, CNN says this, CNN says that. But for the working class people who just go do their jobs and stuff, they don't care. And because of that, I think that there's bigger issues at play here than what, just doing a PSYOP is to push the next agenda or push the next whatever. And the thing is, particular that's going to affect people right now is this fact that largely because the United States, NATO, New World Order is putting it out there that they can turn off people's access to their funds, right? Like Canada cut off their citizens' bank accounts. Ukraine cut off its citizens' bank accounts. Everybody's cutting off bank accounts left and right, center. And then America cut off Russia's bank account with the rest of the world because it invaded Ukraine. And what people are figuring out is that we need decentralized finance so that people cannot just at a whim cut your access off to global finance. And that's really bad. So things like blockchain have become a weapon and a defense. And particularly in America's sake, this is a very, very big deal to people, or should be a big deal to people, more so than what's going on with New World Order and the war and all this, is that everybody out there, because of what the United States did in kicking Russia off the SWIFT system. Now, remember, in the grand scheme of things, everybody is an ally, but they're all doing their little role. Okay. So they kick Russia off of SWIFT, and you have all of these bystanders out there, like the little guys like El Salvador and Brazil and, all these little South American countries, the African countries, all of these guys that are looking like, aha, they can completely shut my bank account down. And we're not talking about individuals, we're talking about countries. So now they're plotting a defense against America and against any other country who can shut down their financial system. So where are they going to go? They're going to go to Bitcoin. They already have. It's already begun. Started with Nigeria, then El Salvador, and the list keeps on going. And this is rapidly increasing right now because America wants to flex its muscles. And, the boomer politicians up there think they can just print more money and aren't really concerned about consequences because they don't have to be. You know, when you can print money out of thin air, you don't have to be concerned with consequences. What's going on right now, though? And this is in the Wall Street Journal. So whether or not how much truth there is into it or not, there's probably a little bit. Saudi Arabia considers accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. And people will think, well, like, who cares, right? Well, what's called the Bretton Woods Act, the Bretton Woods, was a system that was set up by America, being the global superpower that basically defeated Hitler and defeated Japan in World War II. And because we did that and everybody else was in chaos and nobody touched us, nobody touched America. We still had all of our financial stuff in place, all of our building in place, and everything was in place. We said, well, why don't we base the world economy on the dollar? And then we'll base the dollar on gold, and then we'll have a fair standard. We'll just use the dollar. Okay, that was the original Bretton Woods. What that changed into was the fact that America didn't have any money. It didn't have any gold. It stole the gold of its people. And then they said, well, we'll base the dollar on oil instead of gold. And that led to a treaty, which goes back to Saudi Arabia, where we have a treaty with Saudi Arabia that says, hey, you can only sell your Saudi Arabian oil for United States dollars. That's why they call it a petrodollar. You can only sell it in United States dollars. And in return for that, we will protect you and care for you and love you and hold you all good long time. Well, now Saudi Arabia is understanding that the dollar doesn't really mean anything. Okay, because all of these countries are leaving the dollar now, because if United States or IMF or whoever is going to start turning off people's bank accounts, entire countries, they're like, kind of don't want to be a part of this. Okay, even if you're part of the New World Order system, nobody likes to be a pawn like that, even if you're one of the major players. And this is the death knells of the dollar, I would say. And potentially outright war, because we have a treaty in place that says, hey, you can't sell this stuff for anything other than dollars, which is why I think the story could be kind of sort of not true, but it's out there. And if Saudi Arabia starts accepting any other currency other than dollars for oil, that's it for America, guys. That's it. Dollar is going bye-bye. It's done. It's completely done. And that's all there is to that. This happened a long time ago, and I did cover it in an old live stream where Russia and Saudi Arabia signed an agreement for ending the petrodollar. And this was for like very specific type of jet fuel, like a year ago or something like that. So people have been working around this whole idea that we all need to be on the SWIFT system, and the US dollar is going to be the main currency for everybody. And, they kind of could all see it. Everyone could kind of see it coming. And I look at it like this. It's kind of like the way these world major players look at and react to one another is like they're all part of the IMF. They're all part of the World Economic Forum, Putin, Biden, the China guy, Panda Poo, whatever his name is. They're all buddies, and they're all following a thing, but they're also trying to look after their own countries because they don't want to get messed over, kind of like where in America we have monopoly corporations, but there's always two of them. Okay. You've got AMD and then Intel, Microsoft, and then Apple, and nobody else. And this is the same kind of a thing, to where AMD and Intel are not outright enemies, even though they're competitors. They work together to control and manipulate the entire chip manufacturing system, just like Microsoft and Apple work together to control the entire operating system stuff in computers. But one of them gets an advantage and someone's kind of holding the bag. They don't want to be holding the bag. They want to look out for their own stuff, and that's kind of what's going on right now. And it's very interesting. It's like people are paying more attention to this than what's going on in Ukraine. Is honestly what's going on in Ukraine is from the political rhetoric standpoint is laughable. Obviously, it sucks for the people who are there, but the stories that are put up there on Sludge Report, the stories that are put up there all over the place are just like, how could anyone ever believe this stuff? How could anyone ever believe that's what's actually going on over there? I can bring up a story of apparently a 50-something-year-old woman with 12 children died on the front line of combat in Ukraine. A 50-something-year-old woman with 12 kids is serving on the front lines of Ukraine? What? Anyone believe that? The ridiculousness that is coming out of that. But in the background, the old dollars is coming out. And, I'm going to repeat and repeat and repeat. The more that I watch and more I study about Bitcoin, particularly no other blockchain, don't even consider it, Bitcoin. This is what is explained to me, that if the United States does not have Bitcoin, they're at a severe disadvantage, because it prevents people from DDoSing. If anyone's familiar with a DDoS attack, it's you ping somebody's computer so much that they can't do anything on their computer. Well, America DDoSed, denial of service attacked Russia. We denial of service attacked Iran. We denial of service attacked Iraq. And anybody we don't like, we kick them off of SWIFT, which is denial of service. The dude up in Canada, he didn't like the truckers, so he denial of serviced the truckers, kicked them out of their bank accounts, denial of service. What did those truckers go off and go do then? They went all and got Bitcoin. Okay? That's what happens as a result of you kicking somebody off of your system. Everybody goes and finds an alternative system that somebody else does not control. And they all end up in Bitcoin. All right, so we'll take a look at what's going on here now that people have joined a little bit. Oh, we got King's Table, we got Jack, we got everybody's here today. What I'm actually going to do, because I didn't have a ton planned, is I'm going to throw the link up there, and anyone who wants to join in can join in, because I am actually quite tired today. But I did want to talk about the current landscape as it presents itself as far as the greater geopolitical world, and all that nonsense. But what's going on with these things? And before I open it up, I do want to talk about a couple of important things that are like history lessons or socio-economical lessons that you should have been taught in high school. Okay. What you're going to be hearing about, and sometimes you hear about them, in the past, we're talking about treaties. And why would you care about treaties, right? Those are just between countries. They're just between countries, and we'd agree to do this. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, slap you in the butt, whatever. Treaties negate all of any freedoms that you have. They are the highest law of the highest law of the highest law in the Constitution. And it is that way for a reason. But understand how NAFTA and New World Orderism stuff and all of these come together is they're using these treaties, which bypass people's freedoms, okay? Legally. It's how the government is set up. So be very, very wary when they start doing treaties about, your people's carbon footprints and this and that and the other thing. And you think you're going to go wave a flag and go protest. Doesn't work like that. It's a treaty. It's a treaty. The highest law. The highest law. So watch out anytime they come up with some kind of treaty. What do I got? List of the treaties. You can look up all the different treaties up here. The interesting one that's negated from Wikipedia is the one that says that you can't go to the South Pole. Just, I wonder why. I have no idea. In other news, while we have rampaging and ravaging wars going on, and we have things, 8% inflation, whatever. This is what Senate is voting on. is to make daylight savings time non-existent. Hooray. Thanks. Okay. Job well done, fellas. Job well done. So here is the Ukrainian 50-year-old Ukrainian mother of 12 who apparently was serving on the front lines, even though she's a medic and 50 years old, who died in combat, but they can't recover her body. Yeah, that's the propaganda. And you look this person's image up with image search, and the only images of this person that have ever been on the internet ever are the 3 pictures that are in the news story. So that tells you this is 100% guaranteed to be a real person. 100% guaranteed. Okay. Going back to the economics of things, and that the fiat dollar, going back to petrodollar, going back to America not dealing. Basically, America is like a huge giant Ponzi scheme at this point. And if the largest countries in the world weren't involved in the same sort of Ponzi scheme with America, they would all be at war with America, because it's ridiculous what America is doing, which is why you kind of don't know where to gauge Russia and Putin and all of this, because Putin's been buying gold since 2006. China's been buying gold about that long too. It's kind of almost like they almost planned, they almost planned to maybe have a war where they wouldn't have dollars and fiat currency maybe they wouldn't have dollars and fiat currency. I don't know, man. I don't know. Bitcoin's at 40,000. It's going to go higher. So this here is an article about the denial of service attacks. And what Swift is basically just internet that goes between banks and allows countries to do transactions in the billions and whatnot. And that's all it is. It's nothing special. It's been around for 70 years or something. And because America is the doler out of the dollars, and everybody needs dollars to buy oil, everybody's got to use the SWIFT system, because if they don't, then they can't buy oil. And when America decides, hey, we're going to start kicking people off of SWIFT, people realize that it's really bad to be in that system. And then they go to Bitcoin, period. Because there's nowhere else to go. You can't do anything else. You can make your own currency, but then the next guy is going to be worried about you cutting off his access to funds. You see, this is why central bank digital currencies are never going to work. The next guy over is going to be worried about getting cut off from his funds. People are going to be worried in America if they issue central bank digital currencies about getting cut off from their funds. You'd have to be a complete idiot to accept that stuff as a form of payment. So where is everybody going to end up? They're all going to end up at Bitcoin or some other proof of work blockchain that is completely decentralized. Right now, Bitcoin is basically your only option. That's where people are going to end up. So everyone's figuring that out, as opposed to worrying about what's going on in Ukraine. So I think that whole deal out there is probably going to kind of go away, kind of like the old proverbial fart in the wind. Maybe not, because there's some other things that look like it would lead to an escalation. I have no idea. I think that things look quite a bit more positive than they did, based on the reaction from other countries that are outside of the Ukraine conflict and outside of the war machine and outside of the news narrative. What they are doing is what's really important. All of these little nations all over are like, yeah, all right, buy the Bitcoins. We're going to do our own thing. And that's great. Now, obviously, because of what the Bible says, we can't get super, super hopeful about this glorious, bright future where everybody is rich and has their own money and everything is wonderful, because we know how it goes in the Bible. However, I will add that we do not exactly know where we are in that point of the whole thing. We see the New World Order. We see the baby steps. We see what's coming down the chain. We see this. We see that. We see this. We see that. But there is positive things happening too as well. And I don't know. I just focus on that. Let's focus on that. I'm going to take a look at chat here and then just put the link up for anyone who wants to come on and talk about whatever anyone wants to talk about. I am going to mention that I've been spending some time up here at Made by Jim Bob. Been watching Jim Bob for about 2 years, 2.5 years. Really, really bright, logical guy. Christian guy. It's a clean stream. And he invites people, like the last 20 minutes of his stream or whatever, people can join and talk to him, ask questions, and just talk back and forth. I've been up there a couple of different times. Sub to him, check him out. And you probably see me up there every so often or whatever. Very, very interesting stuff. I also did want to bring up, I probably will save this. We'll save this for a little later. Revivalists for Christ had a Calvinist on last night, which I managed to participate in, not actually on the stream, but in the chat for about an hour. Man, I got to get back to doing the Calvinist stuff again, obviously, because the more you're engaged with it, the more you understand how completely heretical and blasphemous and how idiotic it is. And, you know, step number one, if your religion is named after a man, you're in the wrong religion, unless it's Jesus Christ. Okay. Like Lutheranism, Calvinism, you know, and the difference between something like a Baptist as opposed to a Calvinist, Calvinism is made after a man because Calvin is the only guy who thought like that. Baptists are named Baptist because they took a tradition in the Bible that they want to uphold, like full water submersion for a believer, and that's what they called themselves. Okay? A dude and tradition. I don't know. That whole thing was cringe. with the old heretic sitting over here. So that's what we got. I am back at the beginning. And what I will go ahead and do is try and find my invite button. Ow. And there we have it. Come on, Jack. You know you want to. How's the Tonic Live? Hello. Frank, you're in the grunge days too. Frank, what kind of music you used to listen to when you're in high school? Oh no, Shepherd's Ambassador. You've been dissecting Brian's book. No way. The pain. Jay's drinking a Pepsi. You're going to hell. Yeah. Something about carbonation goes. I don't know. You'd have to ask Denlinger about that. Or I think it's the corn syrup. That's the corn syrup. That damns you to hell. Something like that. Josh Rubio, the Bible is the only book that is accurately describing what's going to happen and is currently happening. Yes. The problem is we don't know exactly where the time frame is that we're at. And that's the deal. That's the deal. The best option, of course, is to be prepared for don't be under the government's thumb. That's just it. You know, the enemy is not your neighbor, even if you don't like the guy. Even if the guy lets his dog crap in your yard, that guy ain't your enemy. Principalities and powers, man. I have to do it as slick as Jim Bob. I forgot that you can actually pull up chat in the stream. We'll just do this. Shepherds and Bastard, you think Bitcoin will save everyone? Couldn't they ruin that too? They will keep ruining everything to any alternative. Well, it's not that Bitcoin is going to save anybody. Okay. What Bitcoin is it's like it was described to me, and I want to get this guy's name right because he's a brilliant 20-year-old guy. Unfortunately, he's in Space Force. He's a Space Force guy because he's not old enough to understand that they never went to space. But he's flipping brilliant. And I want to pull up. I don't want to mess up a guy's name. Jason Lowry. Okay. So Jason Lowry is I think he's 22, and he is an advisor to the president and the Congress and to a lot of people based on advising about 20, 30 years from now how to maintain essentially the United States hegemony. And he uses that word, that we're basically an imperialist hegemony or whatever. And talking about the financial system is that Bitcoin itself is not an economical instrument. It's not a financial instrument. It's not just a thing that people can transact back and forth with or whatever. It's not just digital gold. And he goes through all of these different things about what exactly Bitcoin is and what it does and how it was created, and how if you don't have Bitcoin protecting your wealth from invaders, right? So like if you have a big stockpile of gold, you have an invader who comes and steals your gold. If you have some great technology or something wonderful, people will come and steal that from you because it has physical attributes to it. You know, it's whatever it happens to be. When you have Bitcoin, it's essentially just energy, and that's your money. Nobody can really steal that. And if you don't have Bitcoin, you're kind of screwed because you will be able to be denial of service attacked. We're talking countries. You can shut off Russia. Russia could shut off America. Obviously, America shuts down these little countries through the IMF and through the Federal Reserve. Or actually, it's probably those guys running it, right? But just saying that they have the ability to do that at a whim, anytime that they feel like. In order to secure yourself from something like that, you need Bitcoin. You have to have it. There isn't any option. It's the same thing as when a new technology comes out like gunpowder and cannons, and you're running around with your knights and horses, and you know, you've got your javelins and you've got your ballistas and you've got your trebuchets and all this stuff, and you think you're really rocking. I got 20,000 trebuchets. What do I need cannons for? Right? And then a whole bunch of little, you know, couple little towns pool their money together and buy a couple of cannons, and they completely destroy the empire that's running around with their knights and their swords and their ballistas and all of that. There is no option. You absolutely have to buy it. Even if, you know, Bitcoin destroys the dollar, America still has to buy Bitcoin because it's a hedge against Bitcoin destroying the dollar. But beyond that, it's when all these countries are starting to leave the dollar. It's happening right now. Okay. In order, when nobody's using the dollar is worthless, guys. America doesn't produce anything. It's worthless. Intel produces computer chips and they have a factory here, but other than, even our cars, we have some factories in America, but most of those are in Mexico and Canada. So we really don't have anything to offer anybody. In the Midwest here, we have grain. Okay. We feed 80% of the world, with Midwest where I'm at, with corn. But that's just one asset. We do have oil and all these other things, but because of globalism and because of carbon footprints, we're not allowed to drill oil and we're not allowed to refine oil. We're not allowed to do all this other stuff, and that's that's just the way that it is right now. You're going to talk about like warfare, and this is what I don't have it up anymore. Yeah, I do. This is what Jason Lowery's job is to hedge America in warfare 30 years from now to keep being a world power. And he's not a Bitcoin maximalist. He's just talking about blockchain and proof of work systems, to where instead of going to war, people, you don't understand this, is that right now, if you can print money for nothing, if you have a problem with somebody, you just print more money and go blow them up. Everybody profits. And as America, we can do that because we have this petrodollar that everybody agreed to, until they don't. Okay. But if you actually have an asset that requires energy, like Bitcoin, to produce, and it's a limited resource to where you can't just print it out of thin air. When you want to go to war with somebody, what are you actually going to do to them? What are you going to steal from them? If all of their wealth is in Bitcoin, you're going to show up. They're not going to give you the private keys to their Bitcoin. What are you going to get? And it's not just about transferring ones and zeros and numbers back and forth from one wallet to another with Bitcoin. You can also register NFTs, non-fungible token things, to the blockchain as well. And the basics of this, I will say as simply as, you could register, say, the deed to your house on the blockchain that proves that you own it. And once that happens, nobody can really take it away from you. I mean, of course, by force they could, but you will always have the legal standing in the blockchain forever that you actually own it as immutable proof. And this is the way that things are going to be. They will be this way, that everything will be registered on a blockchain. You rent an apartment, you're going to have a smart contract on some blockchain somewhere. You don't pay your rent. It has nothing to do with the landlord. The blockchain is going to charge you extra. Okay. There is no wheeling and dealing. It's just the way that it is going to be. And for countries to not be involved in that, they basically are destroying themselves. Like China. China has a long history of destroying itself. Okay. You have the people who are in power, and then the people who actually make money. That, the vampires in power, they just suck off everybody. And the people who make money eventually make enough money where the people who suck off everybody decide that they're a little bit too powerful, and then they cut them off at the knees, which is what happened, in the 1400s or something. The Chinese burned all their merchant ships. They were the greatest merchant navy the world had ever seen, and the richest country the world had ever seen. But because the emperor felt threatened by the merchants, he burned all of the merchants' boats. That destroyed the country and put them into the dark ages. Now, what did China do? Every other week, they're banning Bitcoin. They're just manipulating the market. But what they did last year, around July, is they actually kicked out all of the Bitcoin miners and made it illegal to mine cryptocurrency in their country. And at the time, I think they had about 60% of the hash rate for Bitcoin. Bitcoin does not care. Bitcoin does not care. But China now is completely handicapped, where they no longer have they don't have anything. Okay. They have a whole bunch of workers and some factories, I guess, but somebody could DDoS their system and turn off their digital yuan. I'm sure that America has the technology to do that. Russia's got the technology to do that and completely shut down their financial system. It's not protected by anything. Bitcoin, you cannot shut down. Impossible to shut down. And everybody's going to be going to Bitcoin. And for the simple fact that China shut down all of the miners, as they had 60 or 70% of the hash rate in all the miners in their country. Okay. If they had any foresight whatsoever, they would be heavily involved in it. And they probably are. The government itself is probably mining Bitcoin in China, but yeah, they didn't, they basically did the exact same thing that they did 400 years ago or 500 years ago. And that's it. The thing is that if you can't protect private property, you're a slave. And if you can't own personal property, private property, you're a slave. And if you cannot protect your property, then it's not your property. It's somebody who has a better weapon. It's their property. Okay. Right now, the people with better weapons there are the Federal Reserve and the local bank, apparently, and the government. And if you had Bitcoin, you have a better defense against the government than governments have against each other. Okay. That's what we got there. My long rant. We're going to have Frank on. Frank.
Hey. Can you hear me?
You're there, Frank.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, I am here.
I don't hear you, Frank. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I'll keep on rolling through chat until you get it.
Can you hear me?
J420, whole world is corrupt.
Can you hear me?
Didn't the Bible tell you that? I mean, how else are you going to grow? Right? How else are you going to grow? How else are you going to learn stuff? How else are you going to do something? How else are you going to
test
figure out, what's going on? And it's a very new age sort of concept, right? Really, almost. But it is kind of the truth, because you get into these philosophical arguments about God is like, well, did God create evil? And why is there so much evil in the world if God exists? And why do kids get cancer and all of this stuff, right? And you justify all of these things by like, you go through this. And when you get through it and you're in heaven and you see everything clearly for what it is outside of time and outside of everything, you understand that this is the way that things had to be. Because if this bad thing wouldn't have happened, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have came to Christ, and on 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 and on. It's way bigger than your mind could even wrap your head around. You just even take the smallest insect in your backyard. You'll take an ant and look up the DNA profile for that thing, and how many systems inside that ant's little body have to work correctly for it to do what it can do. And guess what? The ant is Superman, because it can lift like 20 times its own body weight. How does that work? How does the bumblebee fly? All of these things. They're not going to become, it's way more than one brain could possibly understand. Just how there is to that. Let's see. How you doing there, Frank?
I'm doing well. How are you? Well, I guess Max
Josh Rubio, Ephesians 2:8-9. Yeah, I bring that up quite often because it's a go-to for works. People who want to bring works into salvation, and the whole, it reads like it's like the way that it reads about something that's like negative to being egotistical. Well, you're going to be able to boast. That's egotistical and that's prideful and that's a sin. But that's not really what it's saying. What that verse is really saying is that you have one up on God. It means that God owes you now. You're better than God. God owes me. I did something. Now God owes me, which is way worse than just being prideful. Okay. way worse.
Well, I guess Josh Rubio, Ephesians 2:8-9. Yeah, I bring that up quite often.
Yeah, Jack. Yeah, it was good to see you there. I was kind of surprised. Because my handler came and found me.
Works into salvation, and
My handler came and found me. I'll just go ahead and link it, I guess.
it reads
For anybody who is interested, it's a clean channel, very straightforward. You know, Jim Bob, when I started watching him,
something that's like negative to me.
like probably 2 years ago now, he wasn't a huge Christian guy, and
and that's a sin.
but he was. He knew about. He wasn't dumb like atheist, you know. He was piecing things together. He's pretty much a fundamental Christian, and yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Way worse.
Soundgarden opening for 6 Skid Row. That must have been a great concert. I'm not a big Skid Row fan, but Soundgarden. Apparently, there was a concert my brother went to in through Minneapolis that was Soundgarden opening act for Guns N' Roses. I'm like, it must have been, and Metallica, I think, too. So that must have been a killer show. Back then, it was like $20 to go to a concert, too. Jack, we'll see you later, man. Uh-oh, I'm getting down to the end, and it says that people are hearing Frank. Uh-oh, no, it's my problem. Is Frank still here? One question I'm looking to is, why would God create Adam and Eve if he knew they would sin? Well, Josh, you're kind of getting into the Calvinism thing there. Calvinist would say that he created them to sin. And it's like, of course he knew that they would. But the point is that they chose it. He didn't make them do it. I mean, come on. He didn't make them do it. There's Jack. Can I hear Jack? Or is it just me that's all messed up? Jack is muted.
Max.
Are you talking now, Jack?
I am now. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Must be on your end, Max. I can hear Frank in the background, but he's not coming through. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me in the chat?
Jack, unmute and keep talking, because something must have gotten changed where my which is really strange, because I was on Jim Bob's and I didn't have a problem.
How about that? Is that better? Hello,
Something to my local thing.
Yeah, it's got to be on your end, Max. Let me check chat. Okay, thanks, Amy. I don't know, man. I don't know what's up. You've gone and messed it up again, Max. Frank, can you hear me? He already left.
So weird.
about that?
All right. Frank's up. Everybody, it's me that's messed up, guys. It's me that's messed up. And I don't understand because I was just on Jim Bob's today or yesterday and there is no problem. But apparently, if I host, I had to update some things and redo a whole bunch of stuff. So my audio is not going through. So I am going to try and fix that. And you guys talk amongst yourselves when I can't hear you, I guess. And this is in the Wall Street Journal, so speakers work. Let's see. Well, I have no idea at this point.
All right, I'm back. Can you hear me, Max? And it's strange too because Max can come onto my channel. He can talk no problem. So it's kind of weird why he can't hear me. On his channel, that is.
Oh, man. Why can't everything just work? Yeah, Frank is back. I can't hear him, though, unfortunately. So what I'm going to try to do here is open up my account in a different browser and see if that works. It's the only thing I can do.
You know, it kind of sucks because you don't want to
I
ruin
don't know
the
why it
screen.
would just all of a sudden quit.
Yeah, because you don't want to mess up a good flow, and these kind of things just cause a lot of problems and slows things down. It's not pleasure. It's not a pleasure to listen to when going through a whole bunch of problems like this. So,
Well, that worked.
so you can hear me?
All right, Frank, hang on a second. We're going to try something.
Oh, I'm big. No, I think just sidebar here. Like I love talking to Calvinists, and I love talking about Calvinism. It is a very easy doctrine to refute, and it's fun to watch them squirm when you get down to it. Like they try to wiggle around certain ideas, but you can get them in a corner pretty good where they have to pretty much surrender the idea that, yeah, it's an arbitrary, especially when it comes to how did God choose the person. You you just tell them, well, it's just arbitrary. It's just God didn't have no rhyme or reason to choose this person, right? And so that they don't like the word arbitrary, but it is arbitrary. God just randomly picked you for no apparent reason whatsoever. And he randomly chose all the other ones to go to hell.
Oh, success.
Oh, so you-
Yay!
I literally had to go into a different browser. My Opera browser is messed up, I guess. Now
Well,
everything works like
gentlemen.
it should. That's embarrassing.
You should be embarrassed.
Yeah, I know.
What's going on, guys?
I'm used to it by now. It doesn't really faze me much.
yeah, it makes for a fun stream, right?
Yeah, well,
Thanks for the bleeding ears. I appreciate
I
that.
prefer things go as I expect them to go because considering I was just on a live stream with Jim Bob like either today or yesterday. So I'm like, what? No, my stuff doesn't work.
Now you have
It's
another
only
Jim
when I-
Bob on your live stream.
And you know, I was using Opera. I always do everything Max Bauer account on my Opera, and that was what I was on Jim Bob's. Was that account? So I don't know. I don't know, man.
Did you have to log back in or log out, or is it automatic?
No, I logged in on my Brave browser, which I wasn't logged in at. So, but it was working before I logged in as me. It logged me in as my,
Other account?
gaming ID or
Right,
something.
right.
And it was
SOCOM
working. So
account.
I don't know. I guess I have to update Opera or something.
Could be.
Anyways, we figured that out. So what are you all guys talking about before I was
Cantankerous Calvinism.
Cantankerous
Easy to tear
Calvinism?
apart. That's it, man. Heretical.
Man,
Easy to tear apart.
I would have loved to sit there for another couple of hours on the dude's stream to talk about blast Calvinism, but didn't
Yeah,
have
that would have been
time for it. But I
interesting.
know they did talk about infant baptism and this and that, and having this big wild discussion about whether or not infants should be baptized and blah 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 blah. And I'm like to myself, you guys read your Bible at all?
What's the age of
Like,
accountability?
why would an infant need to be baptized, even if baptism was a requirement for your salvation? Infants are
Hello?
innocent.
Yeah,
don't
they go
need a
straight to
savior.
heaven. Right.
And if they did need
Right.
a savior, would they actually acknowledge Jesus Christ and know who Jesus Christ is and understand what sin is? The answer is no.
A baby
So they're not at
can't.
the age of accountability.
Period.
They have no need for any sort of baptism.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Having this whole big hour-long discussion over baptism under this circumstance and that's, it's like, no, guys, you completely missed the point. And that's what the whole cult thing is all about, is obfuscation.
Education.
We're going to make it all cloudy and we're going to argue all these nonsense points without really actually getting to the crux of an argument.
Right.
And man, you just sit there and get mad. and
So-
listen to these people talk.
There's
So-
no difference in that in linguistics, in pseudoscience or what a lot of people go to as far as dogma. It's wordplay.
Yeah.
It's to give them just enough wiggle room to be able to, in their minds, win the argument, which they know for the most part, it's easy to break that down. Because
Yeah.
again, scripture's got to be your fundamental foundation for truth, and that's it. Because that's God's word. Learn to divide it. He'll show
Then
you.
you
the
have to
truth.
have the whole scripture argument is what is the true scriptures, right? You see,
Only the red letters.
in the ancient Hebrew, it says this.
Which Hebrew? At what time period?
I don't know.
Okay.
You got to go.
How many of those languages are dead now?
You got to talk to a Levitical Jew about all that stuff.
Okay. Well, how would he know?
Josh Rubio, if an infant isn't baptized as a child and dies, does that innocent child go to hell? No.
Okay, but hold on. Do Calvinists actually baptize infants?
Yes.
Some do. Yep.
Really?
Here's the problem with Calvinism.
Oh,
Here's the problem with Calvinism is that they are not a sect or a cult or a religion in unto itself. It is just an ideal, a series of ideas that coincide with what some idiot named Calvin said.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can be a Calvinist Baptist. You can be a Calvinist Pentecostal. You can be a Calvinist combined with something else.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Effectively, it comes down to predestination, predetermination.
And this is
Okay.
what I asked those people. I used to work with them at the market. There was a group of people been up there for about 30 years. Great guys, but pretty hardcore with it. And this discussion came up about a year and a half ago. And, I'm there doing my job, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time with it. But I just asked the gentleman, I said, well, how do you know you were chosen? Just because you believe? Where's the logic in that?
Exactly.
So am I a Calvinist because I believe too and I know I'm born again according to the scriptures? Or is that for you to determine because you are the person that's saying that you came to the truth and knowledge, but I'm not able to because I'm not the elect or select in your mind?
Well, they
To
can't,
be,
they
up
can't
under that
determine
header.
anything.
Right.
They can't determine
Absolutely.
their own salvation. They have zero assurance of salvation.
Bingo.
What kind of a God out there would say that, hey, you can be saved and eternally go to heaven, but I ain't going to tell you how to do it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I'm
you
not going
find
to tell you how
out.
to do it.
Absolutely.
You
Wow.
got to talk to Calvin about that.
Yeah.
Calvin, he's got the.
And what
he's
does
got-
Calvin say about it?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man.
It is. It is.
I had no idea that they actually did the whole infant baptism thing because the way that they view Jacob and Esau. So, like if Esau would have gotten baptized as a child, then would he have been saved according to them? And
Sure.
I don't think that they equate baptism with salvation.
Oh,
not-
okay.
Yeah,
I
there's a
don't
lot of
think that they equate
inconsistencies
baptism
with that.
salvation.
Right.
Oh, okay,
But
so
they
it's-
could, because like I said, you could be a Calvinist Catholic, you could be a Calvinist Baptist, you could be a Calvinist whatever.
Okay, but why would you baptize an infant if it wasn't for salvation?
I guess
Well,
what's
it
the
was,
purpose?
You could make the argument that it's church tradition.
perfection for men.
And
like
that
James
is-
too.
As long as the church acknowledges that it's not for salvation
Yeah.
and that it's just a bringing into a Christian family, you could do a ceremony like that. And that wouldn't be a problem. It's only when you say that, we're going to get them saved before they even have a choice in the matter.
Well, that was God does that already.
Right.
Well, of course,
The christening from the holy water,
we're going to tulip mania.
And that's the one thing I really
man.
I had a lot of fun asking this one guy a question. It was on Standing for Truth's debate. There was a Calvinist on there. And I had asked him, so if Jacob and Esau, does it really matter if Esau would have died as a child? He would have gone to hell. They were basing it on, look what Esau did. And therefore he was lost. And I'm like, who cares if he dies at an infant? He's going to hell regardless. Whether he grows up to reject God, he was never going to be saved in the first place. So what does it matter? And then I asked the question,
Right.
so do infants go to heaven? Or do some infants go to hell? Because it doesn't really matter your choice. You didn't have one.
According to Calvinists,
Exactly.
they have to take the stance that God creates people specifically for the reason of going to hell.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is
Which scripture's
utter-
clear that
utter
hell was not
horseshit
made for
blasphemy.
people.
That is as wicked goes. I mean,
Yeah.
Yep.
people are created and brought into this world just for the specific purpose of going to hell with no chance of redemption.
Yeah.
Then everybody's life is meaningless. It doesn't matter if you think you're going to heaven or not. Your life is meaningless.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any control over anything.
Sure, 'cause
Exactly.
you're an automaton at that point.
You're on the
there's no-
Federal Reserve System.
Hey, but keep preaching the gospel because,
Maybe
they
it
don't
won't
even
fall on
really know
deaf
why.
ears. Right. That's it, man.
God just told them to do it. It's not that it works. It's just
Even though it's in vain, I've got to do it.
Yeah.
It's sad, man.
Oh, it's hilarious talking to Calvinists.
Well, that gentleman asked me, he said, well, how do you know? And I gave him the scripture. And I said, well,
The
what do you
Bible
say
says.
about that? That's very clear. Any man, any person that calls upon the name.
Yeah. Well, the people in
I mean, unmerited favor.
the
Really?
people who are watching that stream didn't apparently know that. I mean, I was inserting things like I was just saying things like there's no point in infant baptism and like little comments like that. And people were starting to give me flack.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they didn't know who I was or what. And they're like, Max, do you believe you can work for your salvation? Max, you
Yeah,
believe
I
you can
read
lose
that.
your
I read that
salvation?
post.
Max,
Yep.
you believe this? You mean I'm like, only been around 10 years, guys. I mean, come on. But
You're a flat earther, so you have to
That's
believe
the-
in works.
that's
That's the
the-
first I've ever
that's
heard
the-
of that one.
that's the ego in me going, how dare you? Right? The ego in me, I'm like, all
You
right,
don't know
settle
me.
down, folks. Settle down, folks. Let me explain it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I go, obviously, all children under the age of accountability are in heaven. We have biblical proof in David's child.
Absolutely.
We have biblical proof that you can be a murderer, premeditated murderer and adulterer and go to heaven.
Yeah.
David is proof. I mean, he was a great guy in that regard. You know,
And
'cause
and
everybody
you,
knows what the deal is.
you could even build high places for false gods and still go to heaven, just as Solomon did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
he did those things and he still went to heaven. And that's the one thing I don't get about these people who think that you can lose your salvation is, and I
Well,
still
I mean,
haven't
I'm
heard.
not saved according to some that used to be in the community because I took a swab test before a surgery. So, I
Oh,
was
yeah.
tricked by man to go to hell. So, my actual salvation was not true because that made me a false convert at that very moment.
There you
Yep.
Gotta love it.
They swabbed it out of you.
Yeah.
go. They
I mean,
swab the
where's the
salvation
logic?
out of you.
Yeah.
Take that holy water.
Well, and it's just, it boggles my mind because these people, they all go to Solomon, the wisdom of Solomon and David and all these people. And then it's like, okay, Solomon had a bunch of wives. He racked up gold and money to himself, riches to himself, which he wasn't supposed to do. And he built high places. He did all these things, married people he wasn't supposed to. And they all would say he's in heaven. And I say, how does this work? Like, I can say a cuss word online and I'm borderline going to hell right now.
Borderline.
Has anyone ever actually said that Solomon isn't in heaven?
Well, no, it's just how can they possibly think he's there? And if you do not even
Comparatively.
comparatively to Solomon,
Right.
like how do you see him in heaven and you now deem this
because
made
his
hell?
good works outweighed his bad works.
There you go. There's your merit system right there.
Yeah.
All
But
sins
what
are
you
equal. right?
really have a problem with is, me and Ed will always come back to is Lot. You
Yeah.
got a
Yeah,
guy.
that's who I was fixing to bring up. Exactly.
The
Yeah.
guy was a huge pain in the ass for Abraham for how many years?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, okay.
Yep.
And then he was his first thing about Lot was, I want that because that looks good. It had nothing to do with spiritual. It didn't have anything to do with humility. Whereas Abraham was like, I'll take I'll take this land over
Yeah.
here if you don't want it. And then
But
it was really
Lot-
selfishness.
But Lot still went with him because of faith.
Yeah.
Lot still understood
Bingo.
God existed,
Just
and
like Job.
Lot saw that God was speaking to Abraham and probably witnessed the angels talking to Abraham.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. He just wasn't all that straight up and up guy, but whatever. Point being is, he was saved through faith.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just when he left Sodom and Gomorrah that he was saved then. It was well before that already. And same
yeah.
thing with David. Like, they always attribute David's salvation in oh man, now I forget the book offhand. Psalms. Right away, and he's already going through all this trouble. He was saved protecting the sheep before God even anointed him king.
Yes.
He was
and that's
saved
before, otherwise he wouldn't have even showed up to anoint him.
Yeah, exactly. And I found a man after my own heart. What? He wasn't saved there yet. He was only saved in Psalms after all these troubles that he went through, right? Well, no,
Yeah.
I guess not.
No,
Man.
the whole thing is like, you have to look at this this too, is like these in the Bible, there isn't anybody who is really pure as the driven snow.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you need to hold on to that because that's people.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that when you get into this work stuff. And you want to take the lowest guy of somebody who for a fact was saved, and you can't argue it any other way. You got Lot, who did nothing. And then you've got these Calvinists that say you need to do this and this and this and that, or any other work salvationist cult out there, that you need to do all these things in order to be saved. And you go, but what about Lot?
Yeah.
Why do I have to do so much more than Lot? Is
Right.
God worth worshiping that Lot was chosen to be saved just for the fact that he was the cousin or nephew of Abraham?
That'd be a respecter of persons right there. wouldn't it?
Exactly. That would be a character flaw of God. And it's like, you
You
can't
got it.
reconcile these
You got it.
problems.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't, none of these cults can ever reconcile the problems. And it always comes back to those same things, is attacking the character of God
You got it.
and people not really actually thinking logically about the situation.
Right.
Amen. Amen.
And what disappointed me about that guy being on his channel is that he's even giving these fools time. It's the same thing as that Tenacious D or whatever, Tyrannical D or whatever that
Yeah.
guy's
Yeah.
name was.
Yeah.
It's like, you ain't gonna come up here and debate me.
Yeah.
I mean, what? So I make you look like an idiot? I mean, there isn't any benefit to anything like that because it's just rabbit
there's not.
trails and talking out of both sides of your mouth, and you never really get anywhere with those people.
Yeah.
They'll never answer the question about what about Lot. They'll never answer these questions about, so people are created just to go to hell.
Yeah.
And these are serious
It's
questions.
another contradiction in Scripture because we all know hell wasn't designed for human beings,
Right.
period. So, yeah.
Well,
And of course, then they come back with, what about evil and this and that? And those questions are very straightforward and easy to answer. It's like you can't have darkness, without the light. So by being truthful, being dishonest has to exist.
Right.
Otherwise, there wouldn't be truth.
You got it.
And that's all there is to it. It's not
Yeah.
that God created evil. It's just a necessary thing that has to exist so you can understand truth. It's
Yeah.
just they're created simultaneously.
Hence Adam and the fall. That's why a lot of people will actually tell you that it's not about Adam's physical salvation, that he actually died spiritually.
Yes.
And I'm like, what?
yeah.
How many years did he live after that physically? So is he in
900.
hell now because he
900.
disobeyed? Right, nearly 1,000 years. So again, people take things way out of context because they're taught a certain way. They don't study.
Yeah.
I'm going to refill my coffee. I'll be right back. You
Yeah,
guys.
go ahead, man. But yet I'm going to hell because, I'm a false convert. Because if I was truly saved, born again, I never would have took that PCR test.
Exactly.
And I'll be honest, man, getting involved with all the cooties,
Yeah.
studying all that for a couple of years, I had to rethink a couple of things. Satan got inside my head for a minute, just for a minute. And I knew better, but I was getting a little nervous. I was like, oh, no. Which sounds stupid, but that's just the mind I have. I'm a lot like Max. I think you know that. I'm a very scientific person, very logical person, but I overthink things too. That's just my personality. I like to tear things down and build it back up. That's just me. So I really had to take that matter for me personally back to the Lord with that in prayer. And it was like, what am I doing? Why am I falling for this crap?
Yeah.
Because it goes to people that I have known in the community and putting trust in man.
Exactly.
That will trip you up every time.
Every single time. It will
Yes,
never
sir.
fail if you do that.
Yep. That's, it's unfortunate, but that's what God says, and that's true. And I've learned that the hard way, like most of us have through the years. So again, that's why it's so key to take everything in Scripture, God's
Yeah.
word. That's what it's all about, man.
Well, and all too often, like if somebody puts too much trust in man, and every time I talk to somebody, especially younger people, I always just say, don't look to me, always look to Christ. If
Amen, Frank.
I'm not setting the example, it's not Christ's fault. That's my fault.
Right.
I'm going to mess up somewhere. You're going to see
Sure.
me you're going to probably see me do something that you wouldn't agree on. That's
Well,
not
sure.
Christ then. That's me.
Right.
That's
That's our human frailty.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. Like if your faith is goes to the extent only towards me, well then
no.
you're not
You're in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
It's a poor
You're in a
standard.
lot of trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
But-
though you're a good man, Frank, I know that much about you. You have good character about you. That goes a long way, but that's a representation of Christ, and that's what you're getting at. So it's a big difference. That's part of your walk after salvation.
Exactly. And how many people might have fallen back, not necessarily fallen away from the faith or anything like that, but backslidden quite a bit or had doubts quite a bit after Ravi Zacharias thing came out.
Oh man, exactly.
Like so many people look towards him, right?
Yeah, that hit me kind of hard when that came out.
Yeah, it
I followed
actually
him
did
for a
me
long
too.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, but that's where you have to have yourself prepared for these kinds of things. Like you can't trust someone like that, or
Right.
anybody, because as soon as he falls, you doubt.
Yep.
And that's because your faith doesn't go beyond him. Everything
got
that
it.
you learned was from him and so forth. You were not rooted in the word.
That's the wrong foundation.
Yeah. You're looking around. You're not looking up, right?
Right.
That's what-
Amen.
That's
Right.
what most people do. They look
Good
around
way
and
to put
not
it.
up.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah, I've been there somewhat recently. I've had my own struggles, man, and it's. I'll just say this: I had a huge blessing today. That just came out of nowhere. And, I give all praise to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for that.
amen.
Yes,
And-
I mean, absolutely, Frank, absolutely.
That's great. Yeah.
Well,
Every day we need to really look to the blessings that we get on a daily basis. Just the fact that we're
Amen.
here, the fact that we can walk and talk and just serve the Lord in any capacity that we really want. You know, that's a blessing all in of itself, because those are the kinds of things we take for granted on a daily basis. Like I
That's
will.
absolutely true. Absolutely true, Frank.
So
Yep. Yes, sir. Being humble and put things in perspective. I mean, that's.
yeah,
I
like you
won't go
don't.
deep into that, but we all
Yeah.
know about it.
Yeah, we
You
take
know?
it for granted. Like I often give the example of, you know, you're the smallest toe that you have. You don't ever think about it. Whatever, right? It's there, but you don't ever think about it. Well, if you hit it on a coffee table, you'll notice it, and it will take you down.
Yep.
You know,
True.
but
That's true.
you didn't notice it. It's very insignificant for the most part, but should something happen to it, you will know that it's there after that.
Sure. We all need those daily reminders, you know, to keep us humble,
Yeah,
keep our minds focused on Christ.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What you got, Max?
No, I was just saying, it's gonna-
What?
you don't want to do the bad times, and then you can rest on Christ and all that stuff. And then you know,
That's the hardest thing to do, right?
is it Second
Well-
Peter 15 or 13 or something like that? You
Yeah,
lay
you're
all
right.
your cares on Christ and all that.
Right.
And an important part is prayer and asking for what you need, even though God knows what you need and knows what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
For some reason, there's
Amen.
something about the audible or the actual asking of it that's kind of part of the whole thing, part of the
Right.
communion
Because he
or
already knows.
relationship or something like that.
Right.
Is an important aspect, which is I have not been very good at that because I've been bitter.
Me
Bad-
too, Max.
bad
Me
things
too, in a lot of
happen.
ways. Yeah. Sure.
Bitter. It's bitter.
Well, I'll say this for me, the past few days, I've been asking the Lord to intercede for me.
Yeah.
Because at some point, we all run out of words and how
Yeah.
to specifically word things. You know, I was at my wit's end. I was just like, Lord, you got to step in for me.
And you know what? Don't you guys find that it's so easy when somebody else goes through something? You got all this advice for them, how to get through this and stuff like that. But then when it happens to you, then you're like, I don't know what to do here. Like everything's going.
Man,
Then you
exactly.
start rereading Job. What could have possibly happened? I'm
Oh,
Job.
man. That'll
Yeah.
humble you.
You know, as long as
Well-
you don't got those friends that are going to kick you while you're down, that's great. You know,
or
but-
family members.
yeah, or family.
Bingo.
Usually the family
There
members.
you go, Max.
Yeah, but you know,
Exactly.
and that's just the thing is that like we need to really take it to heart what we're preaching, right? And that I fall short on that sometimes. I fully admit that I fall short on that, especially when it comes to work in certain situations. It's like scripture's out the door, right?
Yeah,
I'm letting
get in the
loose.
flesh, man. Sure.
Yeah, and you know, I can tell somebody else how to deal with this, no problem. Scriptures come to mind and how to comfort them, and you know, rest and so forth. But I need to take that serious myself too. Like I
Position,
need to
heal
catch
thyself.
myself.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I need to catch it too when I'm going through that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing to remember. Like, I don't know. In my case, I forget a lot of that stuff. Where like I can give great spiritual advice to other people, but
Sure
Flying
don't practice
into
what I
myself.
preach a lot of time.
applying to myself, it's not- and you know that's just kind of the human condition.
Sure it is.
You know, and
Yeah,
we can't be 110% all the time, but
No way.
my
Yeah.
purpose may not necessarily to help myself, though. Maybe to be help other people, and that's fine. You know,
Yeah.
and, that's how it goes. No, I'm totally fine with that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this for so long. You know.
yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah,
it.
and that's the thing. It's amazing how that works. Like the same, basically identical situation, and scripture comes to mind, and you're giving this person scripture. You
Yep.
go through that situation, you can't think of any scripture. Nothing helps. Like
You got it.
it's just out the door. I can't think of nothing except for being angry and bitter. That's it.
Sure. Your emotions take over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Into
And that's
Satan's
where
territory.
I think that's where you know, something like a church can really help, right? Like you have those people surrounding you,
I agree
and
with
they'll know, they'll catch it, right? Because
Sure.
somebody at work might not have that religious view or
Right.
like faith that you have, and he's not going to help you deal with it.
That's why the
So-
Lord tells us not to forsake the assembly. You know, we
Yeah,
need each
exactly.
other.
Yeah.
whether
Yeah,
it's in a building or online or whatever, phone call, doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you have somebody to contact and talk to, that's great. You know, if you have somebody that's surrounding you, or get people, if you know somebody in your community that is like mind, surround yourself with those people. You know, and if anything, it'll strengthen you and keep you on your toes. You know, accountable.
Yeah, that's the word right there. That's it.
Yeah,
You said it, Frank.
it's just it's easy to think of when you're not in that situation, right? That's
Sure.
just the problem. Is once you're in a situation, can you remember?
Show me the truth. Yeah, you can come on.
Oh yeah, shoot me the truth.
I gotta figure out.
I don't
how
want
to
him on here. You're actually going to invite Eli on here?
it's my stream. I can do what I want to.
I'm
My
not talking
stream.
to Eli. I don't like
All right.
that.
I'm gonna go get myself some devil burgers, and I'll be right back. My daughter bought me some cheeseburgers, so from
Devil
McDonald's.
Mickey disease, really? Ooh.
Hey, their cheeseburgers are pretty good.
Be careful, Frank. Sign that waiver.
Anybody who's listening or listening in a playback, like, share, subscribe to me and Frank and Jack and everybody, just so we can, get some stuff out there. The YouTube algorithm's got people in a pretty good black box, but it's also kind of a good thing in that I haven't been hit with a copyright or a misinformation or an anything in all of the things I've talked about in the last 2 years. So it's a good spot, but liking and sharing and subbing will get the stuff out there so more people can see some things. And we got here somebody went boop. There we go. There, show me the truth. You're in.
Hey, what's going on, y'all?
What's
How you
up?
doing?
What's going on, Eli?
Oh, just figured I'd saw y'all on here, so figured I'd join on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting on it. Wonder what took you so long.
So I hear you became a Calvinist.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
just really love the Institutes. It's a bestseller. You ought to really read it.
Yeah,
It's a
I'm
real
not
challenge.
What a mess, man. What a mess.
Oh, well, the thing is that whenever I was, when some people would bring that up, and of course, the thing that I could easily pin them on is the verses from Isaiah 42, verse 1, and Isaiah 45, verse 4. Those are the only two mentionings of two certain groups of who the elect are. One is in
Right.
Christ, and the other is the nation of Israel.
You
Those
got
are the
it.
only two groups of the elect, and they never specify it in Calvinism because they don't know how to rightly divide the Bible.
Sure.
Yep.
And that guy was talking on the stream last night about how they're not replacement theology. And it's like, well, I guess you don't have anything to replace, do you? Because everybody, apparently those Jews who are called the elect, they were just chosen by God and everybody else is just going to hell just because.
Dispensation.
Oh, they
Yeah,
talked a little bit about dispensation stuff too. And I don't think they quite understood that either. But
It's incredible. And
it's
without
because
that
they
one,
follow
go ahead.
it was dispensationalist in that they understand that there's a difference between the church and difference between the Jews. And that was their dispensation. And it's like, well, then,
Wow.
and there's that whole Old Testament, New Testament thing. That's a dispensation.
Well, who was the testator again?
I don't know. Bob the testator.
Wow.
Bob the Testator. Can we do this?
By Bob, my lord. Yeah, something like that. Something like
It's
that.
already been done. That was the defining moment for me when I came across that particular teaching years ago. The Lord showed me that, and that
Mhm.
changed everything. Whole perspective, all of it.
Yep.
It's all there, man. You just have to be willing to seek it. The book's spiritually discerned. That's the key. You can only gain so
Right.
much knowledge from men, but wisdom from God, that's something totally separate.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, just even the stuff of, like I said earlier in the chat, is that Calvinism is basically it's philosophy mixed with the Bible, and it becomes a crap word salad.
Couldn't agree more. That's absolutely true, and it turns into a cult.
Yeah, no different than the whore mother that it got away from.
There you go. Absolutely.
I have not heard of any Calvinist ever justify any of their positions at any point in time ever.
Nope, they can't.
Where, as like a Catholic position, I can actually understand their justifications for their positions from their scriptures and how they arrive at their conclusions.
Yeah.
But a lot of these cults are just so far out there that you just, when you pin them down, it just comes to you.
Right.
Like you pin down a Jehovah's Witness about Jesus being God, and they
man.
talk about, and then they want to talk about, well, you know, he was actually crucified on a stake. It wasn't a cross. And I'm like, that has nothing to do
Nothing to do with it.
Christ being God. Yeah, but if the Bible is wrong there, then your Bible could be wrong over here. And it's like,
So throw it all in the trash.
and it's like, okay, if my Bible is wrong, it really doesn't matter, because what difference would it make if Jesus Christ was just a dude, if he was sacrificed on a cross? And their only conclusion is that, well, he was a sinless dude. And then at that point, you're saying that I can be sinless too.
Right. You two can be as God, right?
Right.
Yep.
You shall be as God, so good and evil.
Because he
There
was
you go.
God.
Bingo, Eli, bingo. That's where all the occults come from, you know. So
Well, yeah,
that's
I
that's a
mean,
deep thing, but it's real simple. It's real simple.
I mean, you could easily debunk their whole thing, even with the Book of John entirely, because
Sure, you can.
oh yeah, I can see that you don't like guns. Obviously, you know that little murder stick you got right there. You know that kills people, man. But anyway,
Well, people do. Just an
yeah,
inanimate object, man. Leave it alone. It's not going to hurt you.
well,
You
yeah,
can't
because
behind it, right?
well, yeah, I mean, nobody was blaming the rocks because Cain killed Abel.
Well, there you go. How many forks and spoons make people overweight again? Exactly. Just
don't know.
saying. Logic. It's real simple.
Well, yeah, just look at McDonald's.
Look, man, I eat it at least once a week. Now, I'm not like Frank. I'm not that brave. I haven't had a clown burger in maybe
Clown
15
burger.
years. Yeah. I mean, but look, they're chicken McNuggets now. That's a whole different story. That's good stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's-
backslide every once in a while. I'll backslide every once in a while and go get some McDonald's.
Halfway to hell,
Yeah.
Frank. Be
Yeah.
careful.
They got good coffee. I'll give them that. They got really
They
good
do.
coffee.
They do up here. Yeah. They're plenty.
Although I will say though, Frank, I think Tim Hortons is better than McDonald's coffee.
I would agree. See, actually, what happened is that McDonald's actually bought Tim Hortons' old coffee. And yeah,
That's funny.
Tim Hortons actually sold their coffee that they originally had, and to McDonald's,
What?
and then they got a different brand or whatever.
You're kidding, right?
Heresy.
Oh, that's funny. Heresy.
But it still tastes good. Like I'm drinking Tim's right now, and it's just amazing.
Oh no, Red Diamond all the way for me, man.
All right. God bless you, brother Josh.
I will see
I
you,
think
Josh. God bless, man.
Have you guys heard of this coffee? Some channel I listened to was advertising it. It's Black Rifle Coffee. Have you guys heard of that?
Oh yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
if that's any good. Like I was actually interested in getting it because they actually support veterans and stuff. So I figured, hey, let's buy some from there, and it goes to a good cause then. But
I've had friends to order it. They like it. It's a little high for me. I don't know. I'm kind of curious.
I tried
heard good things.
blackout coffee.
Which
haven't
one
heard of
was
that
the one that got caught up in all the scandal? I can't remember.
Oh,
one
that
of
was
those
Black
guys.
Rifle Coffee Company.
That's right.
Yeah,
What
they
was the
got caught
scandal?
up in this. Yeah, they got caught up in a scandal because whenever they said that they weren't supporting the thing of Kyle Rittenhouse during that whole thing, when they're taking a picture with the guy with him wearing their shirt, and I'm like,
Hello.
yeah, it's
What more-
like
how
you got it right
condemning.
there.
Right.
okay, but what's the problem if they do that? Like,
Well, come to find out, there's a lot more to it. They were actually anti-Second Amendment. in a lot of
Black
their
Rifle is anti-Second Amendment.
statements. Yeah, go figure. There's a lot of people out there just trying to jump on the bandwagon and make money.
Yeah,
Like
There's
being
still
already-
people out there- there's actually groups out there that are still anti-Second Amendment.
oh yeah, you know.
I mean, I
it,
know that they're there, but
especially
there's
with-
like there isn't any big like
Oh yeah.
uproar on that, is there right
Oh,
now?
yeah, Danny
that's
Bornberg
huge,
wants it.
man. That's huge.
Wow.
That's another thing from the very top because they know that's one fundamental right Look, this lady made a statement the other day. It's Congresswoman. I can't think of her name right now in the United States. She
Oh,
said,
was
"Look,
she from
that is-
Georgia?
actually, yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about." She said,
Yes, I was watching that from Langley
yeah.
Outdoors.
yeah, made this statement. She said, "Look, that's not a God-given right. That comes from man." Excuse me? Might makes right. Back to evolutionary theory. Really? Elitism
I guess
much?
she forgot to read about Abraham.
You think? How many swords are necessary for that road?
Yeah.
Go sell your
Well,
clothes.
this-
I'm
that-
going to carry. That's everybody knows me. I'm going to carry. Period. They're
Yeah,
not
you
taking
don't-
my weapons. Nobody know how.
Yeah,
know
you don't use it to convert people. That you can
Thank
use
you,
it to
Frank.
defend.
Good not, but
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's not about common
Yeah.
sense, and we all have argued that for years. I used to way back in the day.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I saw the bigger picture. In other words, because they know very well if they take that one means of protection away from you, you have nothing.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing. They'll line you up against the wall and take you out.
Yeah.
Just like Red Dawn.
They don't.
You got
they
it.
don't-
Absolutely.
You guys, if they own your money in your bank account, they don't have to even do that.
And that's true. The pen's mightier than
Yeah.
the sword. That's a fact. That is a fact. But it's still
Yeah.
a primary function of our liberty. And that's
Hey,
something
Jack.
I'll never give up.
Just a quick question. Did you happen to know that during the Renaissance era that one of the main reasons the papacy is against individual gun ownership is because back in
Yep.
the 14th century, they
there you
were
go.
against people owning crossbows because it pierced the armor of their papal knights.
Absolutely. That's a fact.
Yep.
Well, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. The Invest Answer. I'm actually just going to post the channel up here.
Do
The
it.
last interview with Jason Lowry is a young kid who was talking in the military speak of how you're defeating people is essentially by convincing people
Groupthink.
that it's too much energy or too costly or to convince people to disarm themselves. And that is the thing that's going on with Bitcoin and in the crypto world now is that proof of work and these sort of things they use too much power. So you can't do that anymore because it's too much
Go
power.
buy your electric car. It's better for the
Right.
environment.
Right. So
Yeah,
people
okay.
disarm themselves and they take away their own sovereignty and their own freedom for some
Absolutely.
sort of greater good sort of thing. And they're easily taken over that.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like,
It's for
you
the
know,
safety of the community.
Right. Nuclear disarmament, all these
Right.
other things. They go on.
Proliferation Act.
Right. I agree to get rid of all of my sovereignty to make it easier for you to take me over. And that's what it always comes down to.
Sure.
No, it's just peace and love, man.
I would say if these last 2 years hasn't strengthened the Second Amendment, then I don't think anything can.
It has.
Oh, it
and I know
has.
that. They're just doubling down where they can. It's the same old
Yeah.
narrative, you know?
Because just looking at look at what Canada did, and look at what all these
it's
other
crazy.
countries are doing, and look what Biden and them are doing. You know, like the Second Amendment shouldn't even be questioned.
Hell yeah, we're coming for your
Oh, yeah.
AR-15s and your AK-47s. No, you're not.
I'd be like, yeah, kiss my butt.
Well, they know better. It's like Max said. It's an incremental thing that takes a long time, and you need, like Hitler said, that next generation.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
And that's
know?
why even in my state, the way that we did the whole thing is we basically passed a law here saying that the
Right.
state and local cops cannot enforce any of these type of gun control laws, because if they do, they're going to get fined $50,000 for each offense, just like with Texas with the abortion thing.
Yeah.
I actually think they should serve a little time with that too. But, you know,
I
that's
agree.
outside the corporation. So that's an interesting thing. And that just lets more people know that really understand what we all do as far as maritime law and what common law really is.
Yep.
And that God's law is the ultimate law of the land.
Yeah.
Treaties being secondary up under that. That's a man-filled thing. And I get that. The Lord puts these people in power, but we all know it says for them not to be a terror unto good works.
Amen.
Nobody wants to go back to those laws that actually are the moral laws because they don't make any money. You
Bingo.
gotta have everything be in a commercial law. And you wonder why,
You
like,
got it.
you know, it's amazing Bernie Madoff and guys like that
Oh,
actually go to jail. And it's really because the reason that Bernie Madoff went to jail was because he screwed over the wrong people.
You got it.
And that's
yeah.
it. Because you can run a Ponzi scheme cryptocurrency right now and get fined by the SEC. You can make billions of dollars, get fined by the SEC 200 million in a civil court.
Slap on the wrist.
Nobody
Right.
ever goes to jail. It's a
Right,
slap
never.
on the wrist, but there is never at all ever any sort of idea that anyone would ever go to jail for anything because it's a civil crime.
Yeah.
And so it's only done in dollars and cents, and that's more or less how the criminal quote unquote justice system works right now. Is wherever they can make their money, is that's where they're going to go, and everything is actually a dollar amount attached to it, right? Regardless of what the crime is.
Right.
There's very, very special circumstances with your axe murderers and all of that stuff where they actually, will get tried and put in prison away. But for most things, it's all just a civil pay fines or sit in jail so they get money from the federal government to keep you there. That sort of a thing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's unfortunately how
Make
the system
everybody a
works.
criminal.
Yes, everybody is a criminal by
Got
default.
it.
As
You
soon
got
as you
it.
come out the womb, you're a criminal. First, you're a bond servant, bond slave, by
Straight to
birth
the crown.
certificate.
Yep.
And
I've had
within
to show people that. Blew their
as soon as
minds.
you can walk, and you're walking around with mommy in the store at 2 years old, and you're grabbing the pack of gum because you want it. Now you're a criminal. And,
Oh yeah, and
continues from there.
and then they do the same thing whenever you try to actually change that of the system, and they're like, "Well, unless if you a member of the bar, boy, you ain't gonna be in the club."
Yep. A little Shawshank action there.
Yeah.
Little road work. What's that? Oh, that's a pie? Yeah, but look what's under the pie there, man. An envelope for the money. Okay, I'll take the job.
Oh yeah. It's just like, and he's like, "You want this? Woman can't bake worth of crap."
That movie's so good. It's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole system's corrupt.
It is. But then again, I mean, that's even why I could see why some people would even want to have the states individually declare their independence from this country because,
Well, I mean, they're gaining that momentum. We'll see
You know,
how that goes.
on that note, talking about Bitcoin and the whatever happens with the economy, Texas is by the end of the year is slated to hold 25% of the hashing power of Bitcoin. And if the U.S. government doesn't have any Bitcoin and nobody is going to take the dollar, that would mean that Texas is basically going to be running America.
Sovereign.
Just like El Salvador is going to be running, South
Yeah.
America.
That's interesting. It really is. There's a couple of guys over in the SOCOM community that's from Texas, great state. And we were talking a little bit about that yesterday. Well, some of these guys are really into it like you, Max, and it's a pretty interesting point.
The thing is that America can't ever ban it because even if they wanted to, the Bitcoin miners have billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. They can buy off the Senate and everybody twice over. And that's just that's just the way that the world works in America.
Sure.
So it's never, ever, ever going to get banned. And the reality of the situation is if all of these little countries and maybe even Russia or China, they decide to implement Bitcoin as their standard to be a completely 100% bulletproof economic system that nobody can attack, nobody can DDoS, nobody can do anything to, and America doesn't have that. They're way behind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they have to jump on board.
Yep.
That's it. Either the world has to ban it, which isn't going to matter because it's just going to slow it down. Bitcoin is not going to care at all.
Yeah.
Just going to keep going. I don't need banks to transact with people. I don't need exchanges. I don't need any of that crap. I'll have my wallet and I have my Bitcoin, and I can do business whatever I want to do. And countries are no different, and have the exact same power as El Salvador or anybody else.
Right, because the federal government essentially has their own fiat currency that is essentially ones and zeros. So therefore, it's their own version of crypto, and you see where that's at.
Well, that's where they're going. They're not there yet. But if America was smart right now, they would have the Federal Reserve print $100 trillion out of thin air and just buy Bitcoin with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what, if they were smart, that's what they would do. And then they would have a central bank digital currency because they know they want it. And they would base it, instead of gold, they base it on Bitcoin.
I'm surprised they haven't done it at this point.
That's the only way that America is going to continue to be the global power or the world power.
Quote, right.
Quote global, yes. It would be that's the only way, but it's just the way that it's going now. It's just not going to happen. The people that are in power have no vision for the future at all because they don't care. They're boomers, and it's mine. I want to do it.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
I want the lollipops.
Yeah. Freaking boomers, man.
Don't say it, Max.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of what it is. None of them understand crypto, and none of them understand any of that. And all they
Yeah.
know is somebody's paying them to vote a certain way on a certain thing, and that's all they care about. There is no what's
Seeing the
going
big
on.
picture.
Nobody has any scruples anymore, or any standards, or anything.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
No,
Another
it's-
thing
it's
they don't
crazy.
understand is they don't understand gun rights either. Because like
No,
with
they
the
do
NRA,
not.
they'd be like, "Oh, well, I just prefer to have my bolt gun and my double-barreled shotgun. I don't need those AR-15."
Yeah, I'm a FUD. Y'all don't need all them fancy military black scary rifles. They just giving us a bad name out in the woods. I'm
That's
like,
gonna-
that's not the point, man. Read
No.
the articles and what it was.
Well,
the original intent of that was to go against the government if they ever got out of control. Hence
Amen.
Well,
tyrannical.
it's not
That's
only
it.
it's not just against the government; it's against anybody. It's just
Yeah.
protecting.
Well, that's
your,
my point.
in,
Right.
in
It's for your protection.
the
You
sad
guys-
fact. The sad fact of history is that over the last 1,000 years, the government is the number one killer of its own population.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's not wars with other countries. It's the
You got it.
government killing its own people.
But
So
you
that
know
is what it's for. But let's just say that the government doesn't have any power to protect you in certain situations. That's what the weapons are for. You're protecting your private property, and that's what
Absolutely.
Bitcoin is for. It's
Yep.
protecting your private
That
property.
you don't own anymore.
Do you want to see where that's the best example right now? Is Ukraine. Why
Yeah.
would you give your citizens guns? What's that going to do? Deter the enemy?
I've brought that up to a lot of people.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it's like
know-
I hope you dynamite. How do you guys not see this? It's such hypocrisy from you guys
Well,
right
sure
now.
it is. Sure, it's laughable at this point.
Yeah, it is.
You know, all that's being theater. Look, there's some legitimate stuff behind all that that's been building for years.
yeah,
Coincidentally, quote, I get that. None of us get the full picture, but we know it's all theater. That's why they call it a campaign in theater. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that very point was like, wait a minute. I've heard that from a lot of people lately too. And I'm like, oh, they're giving their citizens weapons? I'm like,
Yeah.
well, go figure. What do you think military personnel do with weapons?
Yeah, and,
They're
know,
off to play Parcheesi for a year? Really?
I actually
think-
mentioned that
Man.
like 2 or 3 weeks ago, either on a video or a stream, where I said that I was upset, and I'm getting emails from people who live in the area, so I kind of know a
Mhm.
little more about what's going on. But I was questioning that Ukraine turned off its people's bank accounts like as soon
Yep.
as the Russians
Yes.
attacked, and I'm like,
Yep.
what?
Internet.
And I'm like, they
Yeah.
should be handing out guns.
Mhm.
And you know what Ukraine did is they actually did hand out guns. And what all the anti-gun people were saying is they're just giving out guns to any Tom, Dick, and Harry out there, and there's crime all over and this and that. And
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
should have training sessions and really
Oh,
be
yeah,
responsible.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
if
my
bombs
goodness.
start falling, we're going to tell people training on guns. It's like, number one, the people should have already had guns in the first place.
Period.
But number two
Yeah.
is like, yes, in an invasion, you give guns to everybody.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if they accidentally, shoot somebody, it's a good thing. I mean, it completely outweighs any sort of risk of anything else. Is that everybody is harmed.
It
And
sends
they
a
call it
signal,
the
doesn't it?
equalizers for a reason.
Right.
Have you ever heard the song by Dr. Demento called "I Want to
Yeah.
Have the Right to Own and
Yeah,
Own
that's it.
Biological Weapons"?
That's it, man. That's it. That's so funny.
And it's like, and when my kids graduate, they'll get AK-47.
47s, that's-
I've never heard that
Love
one.
Yeah, look it up. Dr. Demento, Biological Weapons.
it's good, Frank. It's funny. Because look, I've told this story before, and I thank God that I've never had to shoot anyone. But I have
Amen.
drawn my weapon more than a handful of times in my life to deter that.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. So,
I
it's
hope
an
I never
inherent-
have to.
Well, amen. Because it's not a good feeling. Trust me. It's really not.
yeah.
But I'm the type person. I have the training. I have the mindset. I've been shooting since I was a child. I won't hesitate. I'll protect friends, family, whatever it comes down to. It's in the Lord's hands. But that's my point to people. Would you rather entrust your safety to a corrupt system that can't be there for you? And they've told you you're on your own.
Yeah.
What's
Yep.
the response time? Really? You're going to rely on that? No, you're responsible for you.
But just the whole idea that the government's even responsible for that is like, what
It's ridiculous.
There's Supreme Court cases even ruled on that. I mean, it was
Sure.
Shaheen versus Winnebago County, whenever it was somebody who had a restraining order against her ex or whatever.
Maskew and
Yeah, and the kid got kidnapped and killed, and of course she sued the cops for that, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that, hey, the cops are not responsible for protecting you.
That's an absolute fact. And they can also lie to you, but you can't lie to them.
And now they want to
limited
defund the
immunity.
cops. Yeah.
What's that, Frank?
And now they want to defund the police. So that's going to be
Well,
even less.
I'm kind of with Max on that.
Depending
One. I
on
made a
where
lot of
you're
enemies
from,
about
man,
that.
you know,
but-
defunding would be the best thing that ever happened to him.
And
You know
I
what's
have to
going
agree
on
at this point. I struggle with that one, man, for a while.
You know, I
really
mean,
did.
it's not. I'm not talking. Here's the conundrum with me is I understand in the fallen state of society and the way that things are and the lack of morality and the lack of just any decent people being
They
around.
reflect
And
society. around them.
everybody, even if they are a decent person, is looking at everybody else cross-eyed, like, is this guy gonna try and rob me or what? And that's just how we live. But you know, so I understand the need for police. However, where I am from in Minneapolis, these people are complete scumbags.
Well, yeah, and you know, I totally agree with that because you know what you saw in Ottawa, right? Completely peaceful protest, and the cops had no problem doing what they were doing, which I totally understand. But I'm just saying, like the hypocrisy: take away the guns, then you want to defund the police, but yet the police are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to protect you because they're saying, "Well, we have police, so they can protect you." It's kind of like it doesn't.
It's
work
a deterrence thing.
It's
you know,
all,
they work for a
Go to the
corporation,
Gestapo.
right? Or Jack.
I'm going to add to the police thing, though, to saying that, yes, I think all of those major police things need to be defunded and restructured. However, in smaller areas and towns where you might have like one or two police for a very wide range of area, I mean, there's nothing there to defund.
Yeah.
Right.
And those guys probably aren't, you know, turd burglars like they are in my little town. Where in my little town, there's a police officer for like every 200 people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. There's like 20 cops for a town of 5,000. I mean, it's ridiculous amount. And that is oppressive, and that is New World Order Gestapo BS.
Yeah.
Do they have a bear
Which I
cat?
totally get, yeah. But like it's just with these people, like get rid of the Second Amendment so that you can't have guns. But yet then you want to defund the police because you're telling me to rely on the police now. But now you want to defund the police. So who am I supposed to be relying on now? I have no gun. Plus, the cops are being defunded. So who's supposed to protect me? You know, or at least guard the community while I'm sleeping or whatever the case is. I don't care. But, you know, it just everything doesn't make sense with these people. It's almost like they want to break down the system so that they can restructure it, right?
That's it to a point.
Yeah.
It's
like,
Yep. That is the great reset number 4 or whatever. But that's another discussion.
Because if you think about it, like, they don't even apply half of the laws that they're supposed to. Like, exactly like with Ottawa, they were asking the person, like, is there no laws in the books that you could have dealt with these protesters, like just the regular police? Because they weren't handing out tickets, they weren't doing anything because they weren't doing anything. So then, no, like, well, this lady just figures not apparently that I know. Okay, then what was the Emergency Act for? Because you had to skirt around all the laws so that you could do something you shouldn't be doing.
Well, of course, that's what they always do, Frank.
Yeah.
That's why you don't. That's why, you know, I'm inching towards the page, and I'm not going to suggest for anything. Is just like just don't even pay attention to any of that because the law. There is no rule of law anymore. Yeah. It's completely wide out in the open that all these guys are charlatan liars. It's been that way for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And what applies to rules that apply to you, they go back and forth between the political motivations of the time that's going on.
Yep.
And what you do right now is going to be championed as being a hero, and then tomorrow it's going to be, well, you're a bad man now because you did this. And that's just how it is. And so they just don't even engage.
Yeah,
you see waving that flag.
Yeah, like you see this with everything. Like we need to do like restructure the border laws or something. Well, why not just practice the ones that are in and see if that works?
Yeah, there's plenty of them since the late 20s. I mean, they've worked fine.
They've had enough laws to prosecute everything, but what they need to do is get more money out of people and to get people in jail longer to up that stock that they have in the local prison. Yep. And that's what they need to do. So you have all of these laws that go back, all of these things that you hear about now, but they all go back to your basic laws of like disorderly conduct,
Yep.
careless driving and things like this that have been on the books since they were invented.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
no, we have all of these things that are created now as like they're a different crime, right?
Yeah, like
They're
red
described
flag
as a different
laws or
crime, but
drug
really
war.
it's just, you know, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just so simple in a lot of ways. Like, there must be something, like, if you really dig into it, there's a bigger picture behind all of this. Like, you
Yeah,
have
money.
laws, you're not using any of them, but yet you say that we need new laws. Okay, but those new laws are going to make me now a criminal.
Yeah,
No, I'm not doing anything wrong.
that's the goal, is
Yeah.
to make everybody a criminal, and everybody already is. So
Yeah.
there's no point in even discussing that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
enemy's belligerent.
Yep. So it's just amazing how people just don't seem to catch on to this kind of
I
stuff.
do
And
wanna-
I hear a lot of people talking like this. Even people like I would never have thought would be talking like this are talking like, yeah, we need new laws. I'm like, no, how about you just implement the ones that you have
Sure.
and see if those work first. And then if they don't work, okay, let's talk about some new ones. But I don't see anybody implementing even the basics
Exactly.
of laws.
There's the deterrence. That's what it's supposed to originally was founded upon.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you're going to arrest somebody for doing certain things, just release them right away. It's like, for instance, pedophiles. Like just recently,
No, take them out, and shoot them.
Yeah, Cain Velasquez.
Get
I
rid
don't
of
know if you guys have heard the story of Cain Velasquez yet.
He's a pedo?
No. His daughter. His daughter was raped by a pedophile, and he went to jail and got out on bail, no problem. Like no money down, no nothing. He got out, and then Cain Velasquez went after him, wanted to kill him, but ended up killing the pedo's dad.
Yeah.
No.
So now
I
he's
didn't
going
hear
to
that.
jail. Yeah.
Hey,
So
here's oh, sorry, go ahead, Frank.
so it's kind of like, why didn't you deal with this pedophile? Why was he not in jail? Why are you not implementing these things?
Because nobody has any skin in the game. That's the problem with politics, and that's the problem with law enforcement, is that nobody has anything in a fiat world of money where there is no skin. There's no skin
Yeah.
in any game.
It's a
Yeah.
You
fiat era.
pass a law, if the law doesn't turn out right, you do not have to pay for it. If you're a
Exactly.
cop and you arrest a guy and it turns out not to be the guy, and the guy does 20 years anyway, hey, you don't have to pay for it. It's not a
There
big
you
deal. Right? There's no things. Whereas, like, I'll go back to Bitcoin. If you're on a Bitcoin system, you make you make a bad decision or a bad mistake, you are paying for it, and you can never ever get it back. It's like paying in gold.
Yep.
You will lose. And here's, I'm going to bring this up. Let me do this thing. Another reason about, we're talking about people placing their safety, and that the police and the lawyers and all the government should take care of you and handhold you and coddle you. Well, in Minnesota, all of these government agencies are all unionized somehow. So if they decide they don't want to protect anybody because they want another couple dollars an hour, guess what? You ain't got no more police. You ain't got no more lawyers. You ain't got no more anything. When are you going to do that? I mean, you want to take people's guns away. You want to take people's stuff away. The police
luck.
decide they don't want to protect anyone. They just go on strike. And then the other thing here is, with everyone being a criminal in Minnesota right now, the public defense lawyers, each of these public defense lawyers have over 100 cases each in Minneapolis. How can somebody get a fair trial if their attorney has 100 other cases that they're dealing with?
You can't.
They should have let every single person out of jail. Everybody can declare a mistrial, where all of these public defense lawyers are on strike, shutting down the system.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we also have, at the same time, the teachers are like, oh, we're unionized too. We can get some more money out of the state. Give us some more money out of the state. Now the next one is going to be the police. Give us some more money. Give us hazard pay. Now the hazard pay has run out for COVID-19 or cooties. So we got to strike now. We want to keep our bonus pay. And that's what happens when you have a government system where these are tax-funded entities that are never, ever, ever going away, ever. Whereas you have something more of a
Or held
private,
accountable.
community-based law enforcement, or whatever you want to do, where it's more of a private institution. Hey, you guys want to strike? We can hire somebody else.
Right.
We can hire people to come in.
Always private security.
Right? You have an elected police chief, an elected mayor, an elected whatever, and then you hire a security agency.
Well, people
Yeah,
can regulate themselves. We've always been able to do it. It was not a
Well,
problem
not
in the
anymore,
past.
man. Everybody's a bunch of soy boys and softies.
Not me.
Amen.
Yeah, well, we're all older here. We're all in our, at least 40s. So
Not me.
not you. I thought you were,
Not yet.
No, I'm not even 30.
you're not
Yeah,
even 30.
Eli's the child of the community.
Oh,
Him and James.
you got the best job out of all of us, though, so that makes up for it.
Eh,
Believe it.
it's not
debatable.
the best. But here's the thing: is that even with like a bunch of the stuff with like what you have on the screen right here with the teachers strike and all that stuff. Here's how you deal with the whole thing of with these teachers unions and all that stuff. Don't put the kids in public school.
Thank you. It's
Homeschool
real
them or
simple.
put them in a private
That's-
school.
But that's
Oh,
not going to
no,
stop.
parents are
You know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen in Minnesota? The state employees go on strike about every 5 years.
Right.
And
Wah,
it's-
wah, wah.
Right. I know. It's basically, I think Minnesota is more expensive than even California if you add up all the taxes, depending on where you live.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those communist sort of networks, and Minnesota gets a lot of federal funding, and that's the reason they are that they are. We accept all the immigrants from everywhere without any cap,
Show
and
me the money.
that's how it is. People here are primarily from like Sweden and Norway and those areas, and that mentality of the group of people is very socialist. Okay, so that's just why it is what it is. But what you understand, what's going to happen is if you deny the teachers or people pull their kids out of schools, what is going to happen is that the state is going to raise taxes, because they're going to say,
Yep.
well, we don't have the money from the kids coming to schools anymore.
Absolutely.
So we have to raise taxes to keep our standard of education up, because we
But
don't
once
have
you do that,
kids coming
also,
to
Max,
school.
you're breaking that bond with the state with your child. A lot of people don't realize that.
Right. Well, in the grand scheme of things, is like if you take your kids out of school, you're just going to be paying for it anyway, right? Because it's not like they're going to give you a deduction in taxes for not having your kids in the
That's
school.
right. That's right.
And they're going to be like, well, because we don't have the same amount of students coming in, we're not getting the same amount of federal aid that we used to, so we need to raise your state taxes. Okay, this is how the system works. It's all just a big fleecing.
Yep.
That's it.
Got it.
And they have the ability to do that for a variety of different reasons, but primarily because of fiat and the banking system and everything else. And it's just
Right.
like, okay for everyone to steal everybody's money, and that's fine, as long as you're on the top. And of course, these people here want to get in on the action. I know that for a fact that Minnesota teachers are paid very well for what they do. They only work 6 months out of the year, paid all the way through the summer. They get all the same days off as all the kids, minus the whatever the conference things are,
Right.
Be nice.
It
Yeah.
doesn't take much to become a teacher. And yeah, it's every 5 years. We're gonna do a thing. What did surprise me though was the public defenders, and I have to say, good for those guys. And honestly, if I was like in trouble with something, that would be my number one defense. Be like, well, I can't have a fair trial because my defender has got 100 other cases, right?
Yep.
Fair
and expedient trial.
Good for these guys. These guys make 1/5 of what a prosecutor makes. So, and the reason that is to show you how the system is that the prosecutor makes the government money. So they give that guy $200,000 a year. And then there is a public defender that they just sort of have to have a body in there that passed the bar exam. So they'll give that guy 60 grand a year. Right. And that's how it is. 60 grand if you're really high, if you've been doing it a while, and not a very high paying job. And so, yeah, they're complaining about it. But if they're putting 100 cases on one public defender, nobody's getting a fair trial. Nobody. Or even a fair hearing.
Right.
But, these guys don't make any money for the state. So who wants to finance that?
Yeah, that's true.
That, and of course, why would you want to be in a position where you got to defend people who beyond a shadow of a doubt are guilty of sin?
Reasonable doubt.
Well,
But
the
yeah,
thing is
that's
with
true.
that, though, is that I would say that 90% of people that are arrested and put in jail and charged with something wouldn't actually be convicted. But the system is set up such as that everybody is going to be guilty no matter what, because if you don't go with a plea bargain, you're going to be sitting in jail for the maximum amount of your sentence before you
Absolutely.
get through your trial. So it makes sense from every single standpoint that they're going to charge you. For instance, I personally know somebody who was charged with burglary for waiting for someone to come home because their bicycle was locked in the house and they were sitting on the porch. So they were on the porch waiting for someone to come home and so we get their bicycle back. And the person was mad at them and they called the police, and the police charged the guy with burglary, which is a
Wow.
felony, which is 4 years in prison. Okay, for sitting on a porch, which is obviously is not,
That's not burglary.
that's not
No.
burglary. It doesn't,
No,
nothing.
no dictum,
coincides
no
there.
crime, right?
You could maybe say disorderly conduct or maybe trespass.
Trespassing, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe trespass, but no, they go with burglary. And because he was on probation and had some other things going on, it's either
Uh-oh.
you plead guilty to burglary and get out in a week or two,
You get the max.
or you can sit in jail for 6 to 8 months and probably, go to trial and maybe win, maybe lose, maybe whatever. But that's the reality of the situation. So in Minnesota, the stat is like 98.9% of all, maybe it's 96.9 or 98.9% of all cases that go to court. Anybody who is ever charged with anything,
Plea bargain yourself
Plea
into a
bargain.
position of becoming more of a criminal, right?
yeah, they're plea bargain to conviction.
Yep.
So really, if even like 10 or 15% of people decided to fight it in court, the entire system would shut down because they don't have the time to actually try anything.
That's true.
They just they charge you with absolutely the most extreme things they possibly can and spook people, because a lot of people
charges.
honestly in jail aren't very smart. They don't have any money,
Right.
right? You charge them with 5 or 6 felonies and they say, well, drop it down to 2 felonies and we'll let you out next weekend if you just plead guilty. They're pleading guilty. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And that's how the entire system has been run, at least in Minnesota, for a long time.
I got to run, guys. God
Yeah.
bless. It's been fun. Y'all take
All
care.
right, thanks, Jack.
Later.
All right. Have a good one, Jack. God bless you.
Yep. And that's where you get this prison industrial complex that, Texas is known for. They're renowned for their prison industrial complex. And it's like something like there, you get like a year in jail for a doobie or something. And that's just like, we were looking at Texas as a place to move. And it's like, wow, if they're that draconian, I don't know, as much as they love Bitcoin, that's not, it can't support anything like that,
Yeah.
enslaving people over nonsense.
They've loosened up a little bit. I mean, a lot of these states, even the ones that are like hardcore, red Republican states and all that stuff, some of the cities, like over here in Missouri, the way it is that, yeah, if somebody probably gets caught with like maybe an ounce or something of weed, they're not going to go to jail for that.
Yeah. Well, in Minnesota, for the longest time, it's a petty misdemeanor for up to 1.5 ounces of weed, and it's always been that way. But apparently, once you're over 1.5 ounces, it becomes like a quadruple, triple felony thing. And I don't know. I mean, it's how these things work.
That doesn't even make sense, even like in a very liberal state. I mean, New York basically legalized that whole thing.
Minnesota will not do any of that because of the medical system. We have the University of Minnesota. We've got the Mayo Clinic. We've got all of the top medical. We're very ingrained in the medical system, as well as being completely fascist, as well as being complete libtards. Minnesota's pretty well off the rails when it comes to a lot of things. But they love throwing people in prison so much they don't have any room for anybody. So the Cooties 19 came out, they just let everybody out.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we got the cooties. Oh, everybody gone.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the thing too, is like when people aren't printing money out of nothing and all of this stuff, there's actually can be something of an equilibrium of power, a little bit at least, between individuals and the state, because the state actually, it does cost them something to do something, where now it's like, we can do whatever we want, just print up the money. And I don't know.
You pretty much still buying the dips?
I bought, what did I buy? Now all of my different stuff up because I'm logged in different now. Let's see, what did I buy the other day? I bought Solana. I always buy Solana whenever I don't know what to do.
Oh
And
yeah, it's
Bitcoin,
really cheap.
yeah, Bitcoin pumped what, $2,000 or $3,000 yesterday or day before.
Yeah, it's like I just checked it a minute ago. It was like 41 something.
Yeah, it went straight up though. It's down a little bit now, but let's see here. Make sure I don't have anything incriminating.
Are you invested too, Eli, or what?
Yeah, I do have a little bit invested here and there.
Okay.
I just I don't stay on like any major exchanges like Coinbase because Coinbase is basically tied in with the government through the Department of Homeland Security, so I'd rather not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's you have to understand where your vulnerabilities are in your centralization.
Yeah. What do you think about DeFi wallets?
I don't trust anything like that wallet sort of thing. I self-custody with a Ledger hardware wallet, and then I use software wallets for different crypto coins that I'm mining.
Yeah.
And that's how I go about it. And I self-custody everything. Of course, I have stuff on the exchanges so I can play around with it or whatever. But yeah, as far as Bitcoin, it went from 38,000 to 41 in a day. And when I saw it pump, this spike right here, it just shot straight up, and I knew it was going to come back down. But I looked at it and I'm like, okay, what hasn't pumped and what hasn't done anything? And Solana's still been low. So I just bought a little bit more Solana. And I'm going to sell that as soon as it goes up a couple of dollars. That was just, I had bet sitting there and I need the cash. But I'm like, yeah, it's pretty safe bet. Pretty safe bet.
Yeah. One of the things that I even had an issue with was even with crypto.com, and I tried to get like one of those tax forms from there. And it's like they're hard to even get on there. Now they gave me that of a spreadsheet, but of course I'm thinking, well, how much of that would be considered that as capital gains, and how much would be considered that of that's just a basic exchange that's not really much worth taxing.
Well, here's my opinion on this, and that's not, of course, tax advice or anything, but there
Right.
is already laws on the books with the IRS in dealing with now. Cryptocurrency is considered property, much like a house or investment property or anything like that.
Okay.
And there is a law in property that says you can trade like for like and not incur any taxes.
Oh,
So
nice.
to me, that means that I can trade Bitcoin for a Litecoin for whatever coin, and it has, as long as it never touches Federal Reserve dollars, it seems like I'm trading like for like.
Yeah.
Now that is my own personal thing, and I've done a lot of research into that, and that's what I'm going with. And anyone ask me any questions about it. So I don't touch fiat, and then if I do touch fiat to cash out, then I'll figure out what I'm going to do with taxes. But if I'm trading on the exchanges, going like for like for like for like, that is what I'm rolling with. And you know, people are starting to actually attack the IRS on their crypto laws because there isn't any. There is no laws anywhere that says that you owe anything on a cryptocurrency for paying taxes for anything, right? People just do it because somewhere they read that they owe something, but there isn't any. So the pushback from it is, you know, with staking, right? You know, like you buy Solana or you buy Ethereum and you can stake it, which is allowing it to be used for liquidity for the network. Right, you're saying, here, you can use my money, I'll borrow it to you, you can use it for the network to do whatever you want, and then they give you interest on that. You know, for Solana it's 6% or 7%. And what happened was there was a case recently in the last couple of weeks where people claimed their staking interest. They made a couple of $1,000s worth of some crap coin out there, and they claimed it on their taxes, and then they said, wait a minute, and then they sued the IRS to say that, hey, we don't actually owe you this money because we didn't do anything for, you know, it's not an income or not a gain. It's the same as they equated it to if you're growing corn in your garden, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what they equated staking to, which I think personally is a stretch. But I equate growing corn in the garden to mining Bitcoin. I am mining Bitcoin, right? Until I sell that Bitcoin into fiat, I don't know anything on it. And that's just how it is. But
because
so
I haven't sold it for any fiat that I know of.
then you don't have to, if you buy and hold, you have no tax obligation whatsoever.
Okay, so even if I convert it to like another currency, like let's say, I mean, like if I exchange it from like Bitcoin to Litecoin, even if it made a gain while it was in that, I wouldn't.
That's all on you and what you decide to do. According to what a lot of crypto people say, and these are traditional investors, that anytime that you change from wallet to wallet, you're supposed to owe taxes, which is garbage. And then there are some other ones who say when you convert it into another type of cryptocurrency, you should pay the taxes and this and that and the other thing. If you don't want to pay any taxes and not have to worry about anything, you just buy it and hold it and don't ever touch it. That's it. And you'll never owe anything. My perspective and my personal opinion and the way that I see the laws are written and what it looks like is that as long as you're not touching Federal Reserve dollars, the IRS has no jurisdiction on any. Because who's to say what a profit is when you're dealing in crypto? Because you're not profiting. Profiting is determined by Federal Reserve dollars. It's not determined by anything else.
Yeah.
And of course, taxes is all a big, wild, sketchy subject or anything. And I don't recommend anybody do anything that I do. I just look at it the way I see it. But what I was saying earlier is that staking is a thing where you stake coins and you get free money. I mean, essentially, like back in the old days, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you put money in a bank account and you would get interest.
Yep.
Well, and they actually, I think they did give you a tax statement to say this is how much interest you made, but that was Federal Reserve dollars. So in thinking this couple, they paid taxes on their gains that they thought they had from this crypto. And then they realized that, wait a second, this isn't Federal Reserve. This is crypto. This shouldn't be taxed. So they sued the IRS, and the IRS refunded their money. No questions asked.
Oh, nice.
And the people were like, well, that's not good enough. We're not going to accept the money. We want you to rule. We want to take this to court, and we want a ruling on whether or not these are actually applicable to taxes, like if these are actual taxable income.
Right.
And needless to say, the judge didn't want to hear it, and because the people didn't accept the refund. The people didn't accept the money that the IRS gave them back. But it pretty much says it in itself is that the IRS gave the money back because they know they don't have a leg to stand on.
Right? Well, yeah. I mean, they don't have a leg to stand on with anything.
Well, it's public perception. And the problem is when you go to court and if you have a jury trial and someone thinks that you're not paying your taxes, and they're a good boomer who's paid taxes all their life. They go, you're the bad man who won't pay the taxes. And I had to pay taxes. And then people feel dumb that they paid taxes all their life on something when they didn't have to. And then you're the scapegoat. So that's what happens when you go to court. But with the crypto thing, the way that I look at it is very much the same as growing a garden. If I'm mining crypto or if I'm staking crypto and I'm gaining these coins, it's like growing a garden. And if I'm growing corn and I go to the farmer's market and I trade my corn for potatoes, well, where's the tax man involved in there? He's not. I'm trading corn for potatoes. Now, if I sell my corn for $1, okay, now the tax man's involved. And that's how I see it. And that's my own cross to fight or bear or whatever, and I don't recommend anyone follow anything that I do, but that's just for the way that logic works. And like, I know that taxes generally, if you're making a profit, you owe taxes. But if you're not making a profit, then you don't owe taxes. And that's only on Federal Reserve dollars. That's the only thing IRS and the Treasury has any control over. They don't control Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a company. Bitcoin is not listed on any, you can't call up Elon Musk and buy shares of Bitcoin. None of that stuff. Bitcoin is a sovereign entity that nobody has control over. And to say that you can tax that and do this or that with it, I don't know. I'd fight that one. I'd fight that in court.
That'd be a case worth fighting.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything, so it's not like anyone could take anything. You know what I'm saying? This the position, and maybe that's my lot in life, and that's the reason that I have to be that, like, where I am, and is that I don't have much fear of losing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I've already been homeless. I've already been living on people's couches for years upon years, been in jail, done all this stuff. And what are you going to take from me? I mean, my $300 guitar. I mean, really? Is that what you're going to get? And before too long, the things that I do own that have any value are going to be in somebody else's name or are going to be in a corporation. So then they really don't have anything, you know? And
Oh yeah, be just like Wolf of Wall Street.
well, you know, if you have any money at all, you shouldn't own anything. You should have everything in a trust. But, you know, that's not for me to describe how people go about doing that, but it's not very hard.
Mhm.
And that way, if there's any government has a problem with you for any reason, which they will eventually, they always do, you know, you go like, well, I don't have anything.
I found out there's something else you could even do with that as well.
What's that?
Well, remember when I told you about the churches that are like 508c1As?
I don't know about 508 now.
Okay, 508c1A is basically a church that is not considered that of a religious organization. It's called a faith-based organization. I think it's under the 1969 Tax Reform Act, where what that does is that churches are recognized as they actually do have a First Amendment, and of course, I think that they still have that of the like where they can be tax exempt. But the thing is that the government, I guess, can't revoke their taxes or something, or can't revoke their status. And one of the things that they even have a trust set up, like I saw this one guy's thing set up to where he had a trust like that, where it was like irrevocable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I don't know the full thing about it. I'm just saying stuff of what I saw on there. That's up to everybody to do their own research. This is not legal advice.
The best rule of thumb is to do what the rich people do and do what the, you know, what the quote unquote elite people do. And Jeff Bezos officially only made $1 a year.
Yeah.
That was his paycheck from Amazon.
Well, yeah, because he makes his money off the investments. He doesn't make it from the company.
Well, he gets his stock stuff, and he's a New World Order shill and all that. But
Yeah.
for some reason, he decided he didn't want to pay income tax, so his salary was $1. Now, me, if I tried that, I would immediately get audited. But no, you can do that because he's rich and he's in the club. But yeah, you know, ideally is you don't want to own anything, and that's, you know, it's kind of like something that it's probably a little late now, given the economic situation that we're going into now.
Mhm.
But you know, limit the exposure to the government and try and get your debts squared away, and the assets that you do own, protect them, either by creating some kind of a trust, which isn't that big of a deal, you know, and it's not very expensive either, or create a corporation that you can house your assets in, and that's not very expensive either, depending on where you live. In California, it's very expensive. Most places are like a couple $100. In Minnesota, my C corporation was $300, start to finish with all the paperwork. So,
Oh,
right,
so you can a little incorporate.
yeah, if there's ever a day that I actually own something, I can throw it all in my C corp and it can just sit there. And
Nice.
that's how it is. I don't know. I don't think that the economic system is going to last long enough for me to ever own anything other than Bitcoin. So I don't think I'll ever have to worry about it, but it is set up and it's there. And you know, and it took a day's work and $300 to get everything all done. And now I have an EIN, so if I want to pay tax, get tax free, buy something, I guess I can. But,
Well, that, and of course, you don't work for any state or federal government entity.
no. I mean, I'm a stack of papers as far as the state's concerned.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things. I mean, people don't. What really is sad is that it took me until I was 41 years old in order to start looking into how finance works. and how the economic system works. I mean, like I know about Federal Reserve printing money, and I know these basic things, and I know about owning corporations and being able to write off all of any sort of profits you make so that you just basically make nothing every year and pay no taxes. And I know about that sort of stuff, but actually the ins and outs of everything is like these are things that people should be taught in junior high school because it's not exactly complicated. But you come into it late in life and it's all just a wild thing, nonsense machine, you'd almost say, the way that finance works and how the debt-based system works and how interest works and all of these things. And it's like, man, this is the stuff that you should learn in like junior high school. This is like if you actually had schools, this is what they would teach. And sure enough, the New World Order schools, that's what they teach.
Or if, well, like I said, if more people went with the idea of either homeschooling their kids or putting them in private school, one of the things I would say is, have them read certain books on that of finances. So that way it's like, hey, if you're not learning it in school, you can learn it at home. Right.
Well, and what I mean with that, though, like I said, the thing is coming to an end. So all of it is going to kind of change. Right now, the best investments right now are things that aren't actually even sound. They aren't sound investments, but the fact that the federal government is propping them up through the Federal Reserve, the IMF is propping these industries up. They're like, shoot, they're sure thing wins. I mean, you put money into Pfizer, you're going to make money. You put money into Tesla, you're going to make money. You put money into Google, you're going to make money. Why? Because the government finances them. Yep. It's like there is no question that those will go up. The only question is how much money you're going to make. You got to buy at a good time. And that's what really all investing, if you narrow it down to the base points, is picking the right time to put your money in and tipping your toe into the market. And it's not that difficult. It's not that hard. And you win some, you lose some. But I never even thought about investing until a couple of years ago. Never even thought about it. And then, that's, if you're a poor person, that's the first thing you should be looking at, because that's how you increase your wealth. And that's how you're actually gradually building day after day, year after year, a little bit by little bit, to where, you're finally, instead of drowning in debt, you're finally, you've got your forehead at least out of the water, and it's really important. And the less money you have, the more important it is. What do you think, Frank? You got investments? Oh, I think Frank muted himself.
Yeah, so his wife was probably asking him something.
So Eli, you got Bitcoin, or you got other stuff?
Well, that, and of course, yeah, I do have some other things. I just have it invested pretty much. Well, I'll put it this way. It's like some of the stuff that I can't move from like one area to the next or something like that, I guess, depending on the platform. I'll probably just, like, if I have any of the stuff on the exchange, I stake it. So that way, in case if, God forbid, I get hacked or something like that, nobody can, seize the stuff off there if it's been staked.
Perfect. That's what saved me. Completely, that saved me. It got like most of my wallets, but I had stuff staked. So that's what saved me. Because I couldn't get that.
Yeah, that, and of course, if you definitely put it like in one of the hard wallets, you're going to do a lot better.
Yeah, mine was on back order. It showed up a week. It showed up a week after I got robbed.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And did those ones come from Taiwan?
No, they come from Sweden.
Oh wow!
So I had to go. It was on back order for 6 weeks when I ordered it, because of production, but then it also has to clear customs and it has to go through international shipping, right? So it ended up taking like 2.5 months to get to me. And these things aren't cheap. They're like $130 or whatever. But yeah, I was hacked, and like a week or two later, here's my hardware wallet shows up. And it's just one of those things. It's okay though. I mean, I learned a lot and I can make it back. It's fine.
Yeah, I got to head on out. So,
all right, Frank.
All righty.
Thanks for letting me in, and God bless you guys.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.
Take care, bro.
Yeah. Bye.
Anyways, I look at it now on the upside. What was taken from me is worth only like 40% of what it was when it was taken. So, I don't know. Because
Yeah.
the market's been gone down so much.
Have you heard about any of those type of Bitcoin IRAs?
Yeah, they're a really good deal.
Oh, they are.
Depending on, I don't know, I don't have enough to, or even really considering it, but if you're saving for retirement, the benefit of doing that is the fact that it's like tax free if you're worried about taxes. And
Yeah.
you can trade in and out within a Bitcoin IRA. You can trade in and out into multiple different assets and suffer no tax consequences whatsoever. And or you can have other people manage it. And it's also in the IRAs, you're earning a very, very good yield, like interest wise on your investments. But it's not something I'm into, because you can start your own IRA as your own
Yeah.
C corporation, and then you can trade as much as you want to in your account. So there's no reason you should pay somebody else to do that. The only benefit to paying somebody else to do that is that it's easier to loan out your Bitcoin and be secure and safe about it.
Right.
It's easier. Somebody needs a loan or something like that. If you go through Celsius, they're going to give you higher yields. All your stuff is perfectly safe. And if you need a loan, it's really easy to go about getting that and using your Bitcoin as collateral and stuff, as opposed to doing it yourself. But if it's just a retirement thing that you're not going to touch, it's just like, do your own. This point,
Yeah.
just do your own, because you can trade all you want to and suffer no tax penalties whatsoever.
Yeah. Just to think, if I was to take some sort of like old 401k and just like turn that into like at least buying one whole Bitcoin or something. And
But you can.
yeah.
If you have your 401k, you can buy a Bitcoin, and that would be, if you have your retirement thing set up, that's what you would do. And you can go through the Bitcoin IRA thing too. Digital Asset News. The guy on there, Rob from Digital Asset News, he does the crypto IRAs, and like any of his videos in his description section has all about the different ways to invest with your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Whether it be through Celsius or whether it be through IRAs or whatever, because he actually does all of that stuff. So he has all the information on that, but it's just not my bag because I'm not quite that old yet. And I'm saying this to a guy who's like 10 years younger than me. I'm not thinking IRAs or 401ks at all. I'm thinking, let me get my lotto ticket and get out of Dodge. And
Yeah.
hello,
Yeah, I hear
Mexico. I mean, I don't know. Maybe America will get a lot better when they're no longer the king of the hill.
Yeah, maybe so.
There's been some discussions I've listened to about when Europe stopped being king of the hill. The actual people who live in Europe, their life got a lot better and stuff. So maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. I don't think, seeing that things aren't going quite as they planned with Ukraine, it's I don't know. It's all up in the air as to what's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm thinking that China's not really going to be as big of a superpower as people claim they are.
Well, they shot themselves in the foot with the whole Bitcoin thing, and they can't defend themselves because all their people are slaves. And so, yeah, they really can't. They're a economic superpower, not a military superpower. And you can be an economic superpower if you have the Bitcoin, and you can't. No one can take your wealth away. But they kicked all their Bitcoin people out, so they've got manufacturing and they have a lot of slaves. But the thing is that over the course of a few years, people can build up manufacturing in other countries. So it's not like they can hold the world hostage for very long.
Well, even with their when they had that one child policy for so many years, I mean, it's like now they pretty much have a whole generational shortage, especially with when communism first took hold in China, and then when they implemented that policy to where it was only one child. Well, then you're not really have a growing birth rate, and of course the West is basically outpacing you, and they're doing terrible.
Yeah. I mean, China, until very recently, has always been what people would call a third world country. Or most people don't have like running water and stuff like that unless you're in the cities. And I
Right.
don't know what it's like now. I know China has been really working hard to dislodge its rural people to force them into the cities. And maybe, apparently, China has been getting a little bit more lippy because they actually have a growing middle class, and actually some of their people are doing pretty good. And
Yeah, they're getting out of China.
I think that's why they kicked out Bitcoin, is because they can't have that.
Yeah.
They just can't have people doing good. They have to have, the government's got to have it, and that's just their undoing. They just undid themselves. But you take the powerhouse of China, and we'll just say that all of the political games are what you look at on the news, and right, everything where Russia's our enemy and China's our enemy today, friend tomorrow, whatever. If Russia teamed up with China, you've got a pretty huge powerhouse there, though. Like, you've got Russia, which is basically the United States as far as resources goes. They got everything.
Yeah.
And they could just as easily, team up with China, and China can produce all their stuff, and they could be the new America if they played it right. And I don't know.
Well, if they bought up either a bunch of land over here, which they have, or if they decide, to do something stupid like what Russia did with the whole Ukraine thing. Of course, I know that whole debacle there just came out of their playbook.
That wasn't dumb. That was self-defense. If you look at it without understanding that it's all kind of a psyop and kind of a game.
Right.
If you look at it from a historical aspect, as Russia should have invaded Ukraine back in 2014 when America.
Oh yeah. Especially with the Crimea thing, because most of the people there already were ethnic Russians that spoke the language.
Exactly. And the people that are in Ukraine right now a lot of the Ukrainians view the Russians as liberators. Okay, so the people aren't, the Russians are viewed as liberators, not invaders. The only people who think that the Russians are invading is the government, which is a puppet government installed by the United States with a comedian in charge. Who the most recent article that I saw on this was that the only thing we're taught doing these peace talks, the only thing that Russia requested, he said, look, Ukraine, if you just go neutral, like Sweden, where you're not going to fight for or against anybody, and you're just going to sit out any war, we'll pack up our bags and go. And the old comedian there is like, that's unacceptable. And it's like, really? Because realistically, Russia could have just steamrolled them in a day or two.
Oh, yeah. And
all they're asking is that they don't want Ukraine to join NATO. That's really about it. So they say, if you promise you're going to be neutral, we'll pack up our stuff and go. And they won't accept that. So the whole thing is being artificially dragged on and on and on and on. I think people have, like I said, are tired and lost their patience with cooties, and now we got wars and all this stuff, and people just aren't into it. They just, but they see people's bank accounts being shut off, man, and there's a lot of people. I don't know if I said it on one of my streams, but the number one purchasers of Bitcoin like the last month was Canada. I wonder why.
Because
Bitcoin spikes in purchases, and they're all out of Canada.
because apparently Castro's bastard son decided to shut down all their accounts.
Right. Well, they shut down the accounts of anybody who donated to the truckers, and which caused a bank run, which caused huge problems for their liquidity and all of that with their banks. So they had to revert that, because everybody, it wasn't just the truckers getting their money out. It was people who were friends of the truckers, family members of the truckers. Everybody's pulling all their stuff out of the banks. And that's what you get. And that's what happens. And that's why Bitcoin is going to be ultimately the standard, or some cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin it is right now. It would be, because nobody is going to, knowing that people would actually pull the trigger and cut off people's accounts in the major countries like Canada, United States, right? Knowing that people are like no problem pulling the trigger on that with no notice, everybody is pulling their stuff out. And every time that people pull their money and their liquidity out of the system, that means the system crumbles that much more, and it crumbles gigantically. So like when you deposit $1 into the bank can lend $1,000 based on your dollar. It's probably more like $1 million based on your dollar, but we'll just say they can lend out that much based on the fact you put $1 in their bank.
Right.
Well, the exact opposite is true, where if you take that dollar out, they lose $1 million of liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge problem. And you have a bank run, then no one has any liquidity and all the banks go belly up.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you also have the stuff even with the supply chain shortage, even with the stuff coming from China and everything. And now they're even talking about China invading Taiwan.
Yeah, well, that's been on the table for a long time. I actually kind of expected that, but I think with the route that they're going to go is instead of invading Taiwan, I think they are going to go either to a digital, everyone's going to use between the Eastern Bloc there with Russia and China and the other countries. They'll probably use a digital yuan or a digital ruble, and they'll base it on gold because both Russia and China have been amassing huge quantities of gold. And they'll just do that, and they'll just buy off Taiwan. And that's the easiest way to go about it. The problem with invading Taiwan is you don't want any of those precious chip manufacturers to get damaged. You got huge problems there. Your skilled labor is there. And you have this whole, I mean, the entire world has legitimate reason to attack you then because they make all of the computer chips that everybody needs.
Yep. So, and I can already think of 2 Asian countries that would basically go against China if that were the case, South Korea and Japan.
Yeah. Well, everybody would. I mean, it's in everybody's best. It's in everybody's best interest that Taiwan remain to do what it's doing. But what I don't understand is that obviously it's a global controlled empire because why isn't anybody else making computer chips? Like literally, we have sand in America too. We certainly can make computer chips.
Oh yeah, we can make computer chips 10 times over. But because Mr. Businessman over there that runs a multinational corporation that decides to go along with the Vatican and the Rothschild bankers and all the rest of those criminals. Yeah, that's why they can basically decide we're going to go ahead and ship it over to China with our slave labor, and we'll pretend that we care about human rights.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know what to think about a lot of that. And then I just look at the basics of things is like whatever conflict is going on between Ukraine and Russia and China and all them guys, it really doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. It doesn't. And then when you look at America going in there and saying, well, we're going to financially cut you off at the knees. Well, what do you expect? That's an act of war, you know? So I don't know. America's the one who's the instigator and
well, that, and of course, even as I was talking to this with somebody at work today, whenever the Ukrainian president was talking about to have the U.S. call for a no-fly zone and get involved, and it's like, who made us the world's policemen? You know, we didn't learn anything from Afghanistan and Iraq. It's like, no, we're not getting involved in these multiple conflicts because number one, it's not what our founders intended. Number two, we're already broken up as it is.
And nobody cares about that. And they care about making money. And so we have to keep continuous wars going on so all these corporations can make more money and everyone can get paid off. And that's just how it is. And because it can print money out of nothing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, apparently not.
And you understand, like when we went off a gold standard, what was happening at the time with Richard Nixon? It was 1971. It was the Vietnam War. We ran out of money.
Well, that, and even prior to that, whenever LBJ demonetized the U.S. currency from silver back in 1965, whenever Kennedy actually wanted to create the silver certificates in June of 1963, but instead they decided to put a bullet in his head, and it's like, no more silver for you, boy.
Yeah, well, Kennedy was ahead of his time. He should have had Bitcoin. That's just how it is.
Yeah, although they did have the idea for Netflix back in 1965.
Yeah, Netflix, huh?
Oh yeah, I read somewhere years ago where they said that they had the idea for like streaming services and all that back in 65. And now that I think about it, is that all the stuff that was done, even the pre-flood world, I was like, Well, it's exactly what Ecclesiastes says. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an argument. That's my fallback to thing when I'm dealing with I'm still in discovery mode when it comes to a lot of like medical things and the different sciences. But when they're talking about, say, splicing genes and creating these monsters and manipulating DNA to try and program people and all this, that, and the other thing, and I'm like, nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
I don't think they can do that. I think they're just fibbing. I think they're just fibbing. Oh, we've got this new Cooties 19 variant that's super bad. And it's like, well, where did this come from in the last couple of thousand years? I think that there's nothing new under the sun, and I think they're full of crap.
Oh yeah, I mean they came up with those ideas way beforehand, and I mean just even the invention of the airplane or the flashlight, that was all done like the pre-flood world, and there's plenty of artifacts to prove it.
Oh yeah, that gets into the whole mud flood territory, but that'd be a cool one. Maybe next time we'll do a. Do you know much about the mud flood and the Tartaria? I think we've talked about that a couple of times.
I've heard about it a little bit. I haven't done much research into it. I did watch a documentary though one time, or kind of, I guess you could say it was more from like a guy who was a preacher that, of course, whenever he did put something on there about the pre-flood world, saying that this proof destroys evolution, and looking at all the different artifacts, I was like, whoa. Apparently, yeah. And then they found caves full of uranium, enriched uranium in France.
Yeah. Well, Jack,
and that was all from the pre-flood world.
Yeah. Well, I think it was me and Jack. We were talking about that, is that, things like nuclear energy and stuff like that really isn't what people think it is. It kind of comes down to boiling water. And that's really, everything else is kind of a made up little hoax to put fear into people. And that's what I'm saying, is like, people don't get that Russia, China, America, we're all on the same team, because everybody knows that nobody is going to space. Okay.
Right.
And any one of them could come out and say America is lying. They never went to the moon, but then nobody does. They didn't come out and say nuclear weapons don't exist in the way you think they do, but nobody does. So they have to be in cahoots, right? They have to be.
Yeah. I actually found that out from Eric John Phelps, and he was in the Air Force back in the 60s and 70s. Actually, I think the 70s and 80s, because he said the same thing about whenever it came to like even the atomic bomb, that what they actually did was they just had the Enola Gay drop that of a magnesium flash bomb, and they really detonated the real bomb on the ground.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, because otherwise, how would they be able to use that for the papists to try to justify their whole thing of, oh, well, this statue of the Virgin Mary didn't get destroyed by the blast? Yeah, I wonder why. Maybe because you planted it there for a reason.
Well, the thing is with that is the reports of what happened that day that got back to America, there was only one reporter, and he was a Jewish Mossad agent guy. Before the Nation of Israel was even, that's who the guy was. And he's a CIA dude, more or less. And everybody, it was a total media blackout, and he was the only guy who was able to report of what happened. And that was how you get the story of that. And, whatever they wanted to do, but you got interviews from people recorded of supposed testing nuclear weapons, and they say they were just blowing up TNT to see what the effects, and their story that was told to them was what was the comparative effects of the amount of TNT as opposed to what the nuclear explosion was. So you have two islands. One guy's supposedly setting off TNT, and on the other island supposedly is a nuclear weapon. In reality, both islands had TNT in big piles.
Yeah,
and that's how that psyop was done. And it's not really important or whatever. Just the fact that nuclear weapons, in the way that people think of them, are not like somebody drops a nuclear weapon and the whole world blows up. Even if you take into accounts of the way that nuclear weapons are the way that they say they are, where one bomb takes out Nagasaki, and it's like, well, how many cities are there on the planet? How many people are there? You know how many bombs you would take to actually blow everything up. And then, of course, there's this idea of radiation, which is demonstrably false. Like, you just go to whatever, not 3 Mile Island, but the other one. And
Is it Bikini Atoll Island?
no, it's the Russian plant that burned down, Chernobyl.
Oh, Chernobyl,
Like,
yeah.
within like 6 months to a year, all the vegetation was back, and you go there now, and these trees obviously never died. There's all this old vegetation that's been there the entire time. So the radiation's a joke, and so. But you got to keep the public in fear. So I don't know, man. That's about what I got. I've been going for kind of a while now, man. You got anything else?
Oh, I was just going to say really quickly, because you mentioned that about radiation. I was going to say, well, then what are they pumping people with chemo?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't. I know that there's. I mean, it's poison. That's what chemo is. It's poison.
Yeah.
I would like to know if that chemotherapy, if the radiation that they put in you is actually poisonous, or what's all with that, because that's a good point. There are some things like that emit signals that are damaging to people. But the person in nuclear power plants in particular, I've watched a couple of documentaries with the guy who's kind of the father of the nuclear power plant, and he built the things and had the two different types of elements they're using, uranium or whatever else. And he would carry them around, one in one pocket, one in the other pocket. And there was never any problem unless you got them close to each other. And even if you did, it did just get hot. No radiation. He was on television eating this stuff, saying that it's completely safe. And this was during the time where people are very afraid of nuclear power plants. So they had to run a PSYOP to make people allow nuclear power plants in their town, because it's obviously the best way to provide power. So they had to run a reverse PSYOP.
Yeah. Well,
Knowing
that
that stuff is completely safe, right? It's completely safe.
Yeah.
So I don't know. With chemotherapy, I'd be interested to know what all is in there. I'm sure it's patented, patent pending, experimental. To me, though, as being nothing new under the sun, I can't imagine that God would place an element in its base form on the earth that as people got to it, they would just die, just from radiation. It just doesn't seem like that would be a thing. I don't know, though.
Yeah.
But,
well, it's the saying that I tell people, is that everything has a creator, whether if it's either made by God or it's made by man.
Yeah. Well, we're
Like
just more or less just discovering things at this point. I mean, it's not like we're creating anything. It's just discovering.
Yeah.
And even
what I mean is like anything that you see that's like either man-made, or if you see things that are natural. The things that are natural are made by God, whereas the things that are man-made are just made by man. That's
sure. Yeah, people come up with some pretty amazing stuff. What I've been watching recently is the YouTube, and I like different mechanical things. Of course, I do wood turning and stuff like that, but that brings up what some of these people are doing in these what would be considered third world countries, Bangladesh and things like that. And they're like much like Cuba, they're rebuilding and repurposing the stuff that's 100 years old. And the amount of skill and craftsmanship that they do to repair something like a tire is absolutely amazing. And rebuilding a brake master cylinder in a car, they take that thing down to nothing. And what Americans do is they pretty much throw it in the trash can and buy a new one, right? So it's amazing to look at what all these countries are and how actually more advanced as a civilization they are than America, because we're all just kind of fat, dumb, and lazy at this point. The wealth has destroyed the country, more or less.
Yeah, it's like pretty much they decided to feed off of the previous generation's teat for so long that they don't know how to take care of themselves.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was trying to relate that back to, because I forgot the initial point, but whatever. Anyways, good YouTube channel.
Yeah. Oh, before I go, I'm curious. With your other channels, are you thinking about making new videos on the other channels, or are you just doing it with this one?
I'm just gonna stay on this for right now. I'm kind of kicking around the idea of maybe doing Patreon again or something, so I can have a wider variety of videos,
Yeah.
and so that people could check out, different things. The problem with having a crypto channel is that apparently puts a bullseye on my head, and I'm pretty sure that's
Okay.
what got me hacked and followed and all that stuff.
You
So
thought about
that
doing
that was the problem with that. And the flat Earth one, it's like I kind of ran out of content because it's so easy to disprove, and unless I had guests on or something like that, I don't know. It's
Well,
just
or if you look through some of the books, like either Zetetic Astronomy or Terra Firma, and just like if you showed certain pages or something, like, okay, here's what it looks like, and then
yeah, but I can do that on this channel. I mean, my opinion now has changed over the last year or two, that I think that actually understanding that what you're told about the nature of where you live on and the shape of the earth is one of the most important things that people have to come to grips with. And
Yeah.
I say that because you cannot possibly understand how deep the deception is without understanding that you're living on a flat plane. And
Yeah.
you cannot be grounded in reality without knowing that. Okay. And I would say, people can maybe not go jump in and say, oh yeah, I'm a flat earther and go rah, rah, rah. But I'm saying that understanding that there is what they tell you is not right. And that there is some traction and some legs behind the flat earth ideas and things like that is fine. And even being a geocentrist is good enough. But
Yeah.
the level of lies, when you accept the fact that people all over the world have been lied to that level and everybody believes it, man, you ain't falling for Cooties 19. You ain't falling for it.
No, not falling for that crap.
Right. So I think as far as conspiracies, I think a lot of the stuff is entertainment and fun to kick around. But until you can actually look at where you're standing, because it's flat earth too, you can prove this in your backyard. It does not take, all you need is a bucket of water or a bird feeder and throw some water in there and look at the reflections. It's mathematically impossible the way that it reflects like a mirror if there was curvature. But
Yeah. And
these are things that people can prove for themselves,
yeah, I mean, you can prove that even just with water being level. I mean, if the Earth is spinning at 62,000 miles, whatever the heck long it is, and it's like
the Earth is so big. That's what they say. The Earth is so big, right? So that's how to get around that. But you can look, and if you can see a lot farther than 3 miles away, then you know that it's not possible that you're on a globe. It's not. So you go to the shore, and if you can see 3 miles away to the other side of a lake or something, hey, you're not on a globe. It's physically impossible. And I think a lot of people would take it as a lot of like I said, like entertainment and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But how could you poo-poo the idea that Cooties is just a made-up fantasy psyop, right? I mean, if you understood the Earth was flat, you wouldn't. You would immediately go to, is there any truth behind the claims the government is making? You would jump immediately to that. That would be the first thing that rolls out of your mouth. And the amount of, oh man, I don't really know how to describe it, but the amount of wisdom, there you go, wisdom that you gain when you come to at least opening up to the idea that the Earth does not move, and it is large. It's, from what you can tell from where you're at, it is a flat plane. What it is, if it's whatever shape it turns into, maybe we're all riding around on an elephant on a turtle's back. I don't know. But from where people can see and where we can fly and we drive our boats and, the military launches missiles and does all these things, it's all based on a flat plane, everything. And when you can
why do you think God called it a footstool?
Right. And when you come to grips with that, and at least being open to the idea, you become incredibly hard to trick. Incredibly hard to trick. It's like putting that firewall up, to where if you can be lied about and you can fall for something like that, you're going to be very careful when the government says that something is going on.
Yeah.
Here's RNL says, no kill shots for us. No, we don't play around with that. I think I had to wear a face shield. You had to wear a mask or something, didn't you?
Not anymore.
Right, but you did for a little bit, right? So, everyone each their own with that sort of stuff. But yeah, no cootie shots, no cootie vax.
Nope.
As minimal amount as possible. What do we have here? Chemtrails and HARP technology of yesteryear seemed like a cakewalk comparatively. I agree, and I was mentioning on another stream. I think the last one I did, I was very lucky that there isn't any real spraying going on in my town. But last night I went outside and they put a nice little X over my house. That was very nice of them. But I'm aware of it. So you close the windows and you're fine.
X marks the spot.
Yeah, a nice little crosshatch. And HARP, I haven't kept up with HARP, but I imagine that's all just weather manipulation. I mean, everything is manipulated by the government, and unfortunately, you won't even be entertain the ideas of these truths that are happening because you might believe that we landed on the moon.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, people think the government's your friend or something like that, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was great talking to you again, and I gotta head on.
Yeah, you too. We'll do it sometime soon, and maybe talk about the old mud flood and the people before the flood and what was going on with all that and the technology they had.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. Well, you take it easy. God bless everyone out there who's listening, who made it this far. We've been going almost 3 hours. Everyone take care. God bless, and we'll do it again. We'll do it again soon.
All right. God bless y'all.
All right.